so we ended up here. Our strategic retreat from the Kamo River Delta, the mysterious pronouncement of the fortune teller, Ozu sitting there before me, and the rest of it all got to be a bit much, and I started drinking faster. Akashi's still in ablutions, huh? I groaned, but Ozu shook his head. Nah, just last week I heard something about her quitting. Apparently, Jogasaki tried to stop her, but... Huh? So she quit right after we did? I think tonight she showed up at the party as a former member. So dutiful, Ozu said. Geez, how do you know all this? I mean, we were out drinking the other day, as engineering department pals. Always one step ahead of me, aren't you? The image of Akashi as she had appeared sitting next to a pine tree drinking her beer, aloof and removed from the group at the Kamo River Delta below the embankment, entered my mind. What do you think about Akashi? Asked Ozu. What do you mean, what do I think? So until now, I've been the only one unfortunate enough to understand the person of such extraordinary idiocy and unparalleled hideousness who is you, but... What the hell are you trying to say? I asked. She can too. This is your chance. If you don't seize this chance, there will be nothing left for you. Ozu stared at me with a smile. I waved him off. Oh, is Ozu trying to get Akashi and him together? Oh, that's so nice, you know. He's trying to help out his friend. Listen, you, I hate women who can understand people like me. What? Okay. I'm more into black-haired maidens who are soft, delicate, and sensitive, with heads full of beautiful, dreamlike things. So, okay. I think a lot of people do have this attitude where they have this dream partner who is like this idealization of who they want the partner to be, not necessarily who would be like compatible with them, not someone who could understand them, not someone who is basically at their level, like emotionally, maturely, intellectually, anything. They just have this idealized version, and the main character has this idealized version. But meanwhile, there's Akashi, who can understand him, who seems to appreciate the same things he does. So I feel like the main character is very immature when it comes to relationships. I get the sense that he's never really been in a relationship, so he doesn't really know himself. So he doesn't really understand other people that well, and he doesn't really know what he wants and who is even compatible with him. Because I can see him getting together with a black-haired maiden who's soft and delicate, and she just hates his guts over time. Like, he might be able to impress her or woo her in the beginning, but in the long run, she's going to be kind of resentful towards him because she's not like him, and she could try to be understanding, but there are different kinds of couples and they can make it work, but you know, this idealization that he has with relationships, the idealization that he had about himself when he was younger versus his black and white thinking about himself as an adult when he's older, saying, oh, I'm a horrible person, but he wants a good person to be with him and a good person to put up with him. Meanwhile, he's still acting like a jerk to people. So yeah, he's just a really immature person who just doesn't understand how human beings work, how he works. So I think over time, you know, we have all this book, he'll understand. So this is a really good setup for a great story. So I'm expecting really good things from this story. Okay, so here's Ozu talking. Not that incomprehensible ego again. Yeah, Ozu sees through this. Ozu sees it. He might have a lot of issues, but he sees it. Shut up, leave me alone. You're not still hung up on being dumped by Kohinata as a first year, are you? Ozu asked. Don't you dare say that name. Oh, so was Kohinata like, was she like his ideal girl? Ah, so that's a yes then. You're so stubborn. Okay, so Ozu kind of is able to read people pretty well. So he's not as dumb as he seems. I like this. I like it when characters are multi-layered like this, where it's like the author could have written Ozu to be just a despicable person all around, but yeah, he's turning out to be pretty well-rounded. If you keep talking, I'm going to throw you on the grill, I said. I have no interest in discussing my love life with you. Ozu abruptly leaned back in his seat and snorted. He has a good attitude about this. He's like, yeah, this guy, he's up his own butt. He's not going to understand anything I'm saying. He doesn't understand yet, but he will. Once he gets some life lessons and life experience in him, he'll understand what Ozu's trying to say here. Then consider your chance mine. I'll be happy in your place. Oh, he's going after Akashi. See, he's a bro. He gave his friend a chance. Ozu's interested in Akashi, but he's noticed that maybe the main character will probably be good with Akashi too. So he gave him a chance. He's like, hey, I'm gonna be your wingman here. I'm gonna try to push you towards her. But if you don't want her, I like her, so I'm gonna go after him. I respect that. Okay. You're too twisted. It'll never work out. Akashi has an eye for people. Plus, don't you already have a girlfriend? Okay, I kind of see a little bit of a spark of jealousy. Not too much, but just a little spark. Plus, don't you already have a girlfriend? Oh, I know you've been getting freaky and hiding it from me. Yeah. What are you laughing about? I asked. Not telling. Oh, I'll bet Ozu's lying about having a girlfriend. Oh, I know you've been getting freaking hiding it from me. So Ozu's doing something. I'll bet it has to do with his master, who I suspect is another god, who's making him go on these fetch quests. But he can't tell his friend about it too much yet, but I'll bet we'll learn more about it later. As we were having that irritating exchange, what unexpectedly came to mind was that dreamlike encounter with the god. Yeah, the god at Neko Ramen. Though the meeting had been faintly mystical, it had been shady above all, and during it the man who dared call himself a god suggested that he was weighing me against Ozu. Right. It was so shady I had completely forgotten about it. When I thought about it calmly with my drunken brain, wasn't it possible to say that the mysterious fellow had predicted this very situation? No, something so idiotic couldn't possibly be true. That I would be so lonely, I would fall captive to a convenient delusion and hope to be lucky enough to get intimate with the black-haired maiden Akashi? Oh? So he is interested in her. I was wondering if, he was going to be... if he just had a small interest in her, but here he's actually interested in her. Unpardonable, but it was strange. That god had proved he knew what kind of experiences I had had, and not only that, but he hinted at my thorny, embarrassing past, and he also anticipated this situation correctly. There was no way to explain it. Was that God the real thing? Was he actually going to Izumo each fall to tie and untie red threads of destiny? As I was pondering these things, the scenery started to waver, and just as I began to think I was a bit wasted, I realized that Ozu was gone. He said he was going to the bathroom, but then he never came back. At first I thought nothing of it, leisurely amusing myself by inflating and deflating my fantasies like a balloon. But when he didn't come back after 15 minutes, I figured he must have left me drunk and slipped away, which swept me up in a fury so intense my hair stood on end. Gracefully exiting partway through dinner like a spring breeze and sticking the other person with the bill was something he did well and often. Yeah, he's still a jerk, but he's a perceptive jerk. But just as I was getting desperate and mumbling, "Shit, not again," he came back. Oh, huh? As I faced the person across the table in relief, I realized it wasn't Ozu. All right, eat up. If you want to eat any more, please make it quick, Akashi said matter-of-factly as she began to grill the rest of the meat. Did Ozu call Akashi? So he's trying to hook up his bro with a girl. Oh, that's so sweet. I hope that's what happened. Akashi was a year behind me and belonged to the engineering department. As someone who didn't mince words, she seemed to be given a wide berth by her peers. Looking at this girl who didn't balk at challenging Jogasaki when the situation called for it, I was left with a positive impression. Her tongue was no less scathing than Jogasaki's, and he was afraid that his charisma might be injured. So, though he had an interest in her cool, intellectual face and her breasts, talking to her had become difficult. The summer of her first year, they were on Mount Yoshida, no doubt filming something according to Jogasaki's incomprehensible vision as usual. During a break while eating lunch, the new students were chatting about this and that without a care in the world. One of the kids in Akashi's year asked her like a dope, "Akashi, what do you do in your free time on the weekends?" Akashi replied without even looking at him, "Why should I tell you?" No one asked Akashi about her weekend plans after that. Okay, so she's a bit cool and aloof, and she doesn't seem to be interested in making friends or impressing people. I heard the story after the fact from Ozu and sent her a passionate mental cheer. "Akashi, you keep running right down your own path." See, he understands her, he appreciates her attitude, and I think she appreciates him back. She appreciates his films and his artistic vision, so yeah. I don't know why a girl with such a rational mind would belong to a weird club like ablutions, but she was good at planning, could handle any sorts of arrangements that needed to be made, and was smart enough to learn the operation of any sort of equipment in a flash. So though people kept their distance, they also respected her. On that point, the difference between her versus Ozu and me, whom people also kept their distance yet despise, was like night and day. Okay, so people keep a distance from Akashi because she's cool and aloof and has a bit of a sharp tongue, but she knows her stuff. But people stay away from him and Ozu because they're weird and like to poke people and cause mischief. This girl, tough like a medieval European castle town though she was, had one weakness. Ooh, what's that? The previous autumn, I had been told, "We're short people, so come help out," and reluctantly participated in a shoot, putting in middling efforts. As usual, we were filming on Mount Yoshida. Climbing a tree to set up some audio equipment, face as hard-boiled as a wartime censor, Akashi suddenly screamed, "Yura!" like you'd see in a manga, and fell. I swooped in to catch her with a precise motion. I know that's so like cheap and cheesy, but I love moments like that. That is, I didn't manage to get out of the way in time and she landed on me. Okay, see, this is funny. With her hair in a mess, she clung to me, frantically waving her right hand around. As she had been climbing the tree, she took firm hold of what she thought was a branch, but something felt squishy. When she looked, she saw she was clenching a huge moth. She was more frightened of moths than anything. "It was so squishy, it was so squishy," she said over and over as she trembled, her face as pale as if she had seen a ghost, and there was something about it impossible to capture with words. The charm of that moment when someone who usually has such a solid outer wall exposes a vulnerable part. I, the obstructor of romance, very nearly fell in love. Aww, the burning of my earthly desires that should have flared out after the summer of my first year nearly roared back once more, but I gritted my teeth and consoled her like a gentleman as she repeated, "It was so squishy," as if delirious. "All right, calm down." I don't think she sympathized with the meaningless battle Ozu and I were engaged in. At least, when we were screwing around in club meetings, she was only ever a bystander with a chilly gaze. That said, she never made an issue out of us either. When she saw the films I made with Ozu, these were her impressions. "You made another dumb movie, huh?" She said this 3 times, but she was also laughing, and the way he was describing her reaction to his movies earlier, it seemed like she really appreciated it. She was having fun watching their films. No, including our last film, it was 4 times. But the one we made this spring was the only one she didn't care for. She added, "It makes me question your character." Oh, was that the one that was nominated Best Hentai? Because the main character was so weird. I questioned whether the internal dialogue was not very, kosher. Akashi, what are you doing here? Weren't you just on the Kamo River Delta? Did your carnal desires lead you here? When I asked her that in an unsteady tone, she furrowed her eyebrows and, lowering her voice, she put a finger to her lips. You really should use your brain more. Did you forget that our club comes here all the time? Nah, I know that. I've been here plenty of times. After the party on the Delta, Jogasaki suddenly said he wanted to eat some meat for some reason and made sure to round up all the new kids before bringing everyone here. They're all over there. She pointed towards the exit. I stretched out of my seat to try to see over the partition, but she put a stop to that with a, "They'll see you," and I shrank back. Why would they come for yakiniku after the party? Those beasts and their carnal desires. Have they no pride in their agricultural roots? I moaned, but she ignored me. If they find you, it'll be a huge pain in the ass. If it's a fight they want, I accept. If that's what they want, but I'm confident I'm incapable of winning. A fight would be something at least. Probably he'll just mock the shit out of you, and that'll be it. The newbies are as useful as a bunch of cherries, and you'll be utterly disgraced in front of them. Come on, hurry up and finish your meat, please. She thrust the meat she had grilled towards me, and though she was telling me to eat, she was chowing down herself as well. As I stared at her in astonishment, she admitted with some embarrassment, "It's been a long time since I had any meat, so don't mind me." For how embarrassed she was, she sure ate a lot. I was already full, so I picked at a bit and then said, "I'm good, you can have it. I'm gonna go home. What happened to Ozu? Did you see him?" Ozu has already escaped via the back exit. I expect no less from someone called Ozu the Runner. Swift as the wind, just like the army of Takeda of Kai. I already paid your bill. If you leave out the front, Jogasaki and the others will spot you, so please leave through the back. I already set it up with the staff, so they'll let you out that way. I'm a regular, so... Aw, she has his back. Wow. Amazed by her frightening thorough plan, I obeyed without complaint. I gave her the money for the food. Oh, and then he doesn't want to take advantage of her. This is so cute. I'll be sure to repay this debt someday. Never mind the debt, just keep your promise. She wrinkled her brow and glared at me. What promise was that? When I cocked my head, she waved me off. It doesn't matter. Just get out of here, please. I need to get back to them soon. What's going on with this? I downed the rest of my oolong tea and bobbed my head to excuse myself. Planting my feet extremely firmly on the ground that seemed liable to roll due to my drunkenness, I stood, taking cover behind the partition, and proceeded down the dim hallway to the rear. A woman wearing a white apron was standing next to the door marked Employees Only, and she opened it for me as I approached. When I thanked her politely, she said, "You've got a lot of problems for someone so young," in a sympathetic voice. I wondered for a moment how Akashi had explained things to her. Aw! When I went outside, I found myself in the dark, narrow alley. Then I walked out into the Kiyamachi neighborhood. I looked for Ozu, but couldn't find him anywhere. I'm going to write about the final film we made. Spring had come again, and my annoyance had reached new heights. Jogasaki stubbornly remained in charge, showing not even the slightest intent to retire. He sucked on his power in this fishbowl society with the energy of a baby sucking a pacifier, his eyes constantly straying to the fresh breasts of the newbies. And the lower-classmen were charmed by his puny charisma, seemingly intent on wasting their student days that should have been spent so meaningfully. Now it was the time for someone to throw a bucket of cold water over their heads, and I was determined to step up and take that unprofitable role. In In preparation for the new member recruitment screenings we held in April and May, I created 2 films. One was of Ozu sitting alone in a drab 4.5 mat tatami room, reciting the Nasu no Yoichi scene from Tale of the Heiki in a sonorant voice. All of the upperclassmen, Jogasaki among them, were against showing the film, and I thought that was only natural. I don't mind if you film whatever stupid shit you like, Jogasaki declared in the darkness. Just don't mess up the recruitment screenings. But I pushed back with the speech, as dignified as Winston Churchill might have given, and made them approve our screening. Maybe the soul of my appeal, that this would be my last film, got through to them. Actually, though, I prepared one other, completely different film. It was a puppet show based on the story of Momotaro, but for some reason the old couple who find the baby born from a peach name him Masaki instead of Momotaro. Like Momo means like peach. I don't know what Masaki means. From there began the nauseating exploits of Masaki. What does Masaki mean? He founds the film club Onigashima, tricks the lower classmen with poisoned kibi dango. Okay, dango's like a dumpling, right? To secure power over their terrarium society, prattles on about his idiotic philosophies of life and love, gazes in fascination at the breasts of maidens brought to him by his lackeys, dog, monkey, and pheasant, exercises his terrifying, perverted nature behind the shield of his handsome features, and lets his hair down at extravagant banquets, finally establishing the Masaki Empire and reigning over it. But before long, 2 allies of justice appear. After dyeing Masaki's entire body pink, okay, he is talking about, earlier in the novel, he did briefly mention this. I think this one was voted best hentai. After dyeing Masaki's entire body pink, they wrap him in a bamboo mat and throw him into the Kamo River, thereby bringing peace to the world. This concept isn't that bad. It reminds me of what's that opera? It's a famous opera where the guy's basically like a hedonist, like this guy who he just doesn't care about morality. He just kind of does whatever he wants, whatever pops into his head. And, he gets his comeuppance in the end. And it's kind of like a lesson telling you, you can't just blindly, lustfully stagger and stumble through this world doing whatever you want. There are consequences. And, you have to put your brain power to realize cause and effect and consequences for your action, basically. Teaching, basic cause and effect, basically. And be smart about your life. And be smart that this is, the only life that we have. So just don't mess it up. And don't mess other people's lives up, too, while you're going on hedonistic binges. On the surface, it seemed to be one of those many riffs on Momotaro injected with black humor, and I did my utmost to entertain the viewers. But Masaki is Jogasaki's given name, so he thought it was like a jab at him. And I named all the other characters after real people too, so it was actually jabs at them. This was a Jogasaki expose that borrowed Momotaro as the vehicle. Oh. For the inside scoop about Jogasaki, I relied entirely on Ozu's intel. Now, is that a good idea? Is that a good idea? Using only Ozu's intel? You have to have other points of view. Ozu was so informed about Jogasaki that he knew things, the depths of the depths, that my pride as a member of Homo sapiens won't let me reveal. I have some connections with an intelligence agency, was all he said. See, he has connections with that god. I'll bet. And he's maybe Ozu's going through multiple dimensions too, like our main character's about to go on to. Yeah, I'll bet that's what's going on. But that was a mystery. Once again, I was struck by what a wicked human being Ozu was, and vowed that I would cut ties with him as soon as I could. On the day of the screening, I wrapped the original film I had made of Ozu reading Tale of the Heiki with this Jogasaki version of the story of Momotaro and rolled it. Then, under cover of darkness, I fled the theater. After escaping the Kiyamachi Yakiniku joint, I cycled north along Kawabata Dori. The Kamo River was running high, and on the opposite bank, the city lights sparkled. It was like a scene from a dream. Between the Sanjo Ohashi and Oikibashi bridges, there was the usual co-ed crowd known for obeying the Kamo River law of equidistant seating, but it didn't bother me. No, there was no reason to care, or rather, I didn't have the wherewithal to care. As I rode on, soon both the lights of the bustling streets and the Kamo River law of equidistant seating grew distant. At this time, there was still few people on the Kamo River Delta, and the atmosphere was buzzing. The flippant college kids milling about must have been up to no good. To the north, I could see Aoi Park's densely growing forest. I headed from the delta to Shimogamo Shrine, feeling the crisp night air on my cheeks as I rode. The approach to Shimogamo Shrine was dark. I left my bicycle near the beginning of that road and walked through Tadasu no Mori in the darkness. A short way in there was a little bridge, and I remembered sitting on the railing drinking ramun. It was a memory from a year ago at the Shimogamo Shrine, used book fair. The riding grounds stretched north to south along the approach to the shrine were crammed full of sellers' tents, and tons of people were strolling around on the hunt for books. It was only a short walk from Shimogamo Yusuiso, so I attended practically every day. That spirited atmosphere almost felt like a dream. The dark riding grounds were usually so empty and creepy. It was at that used bookstore or big book fair that I met Akashi. See, they have common interests. After basking in the charms of summer to my heart's content, drinking a ramun in the sunlight filtered through the treetops, I strolled along the bookseller stalls on either side, browsing as I went. No matter where I looked, I saw wooden shelves crammed with books. It made me a little dizzy. On the cloth-covered benches, set up in rows, people who must have gotten book fair sick, like me, hung their heads. I had sat down, too, dazed. It was August, which meant it was muggy and hot, so I wiped the sweat off my forehead with a handkerchief. Straight ahead was the used bookshop Gabi Shobu stall, and it was Akashi sitting in the folding chair at the entrance. She's in my club at school, isn't she? I realized. She appeared to be working part-time at this shop. Akashi had only just joined Ablutions, but this clever hawk didn't hide her talons. Her talent and standoffish manner were apparent to all. I rose from the bench, and when I made eye contact with her while looking through Gabi Shobo's stacks, she bowed her head slightly. I bought 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. I was walking away afterward when she got up and came after me. Here, you can use this, she said, handing me a paper fan with the words Summer Book Fair printed on it. I remembered fanning my sweaty face as I left Tadasu no Mori carrying 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Aww! The next day, I woke up late and decided to go to a cafe next to Damachi Yanagi Station for dinner. As I passed by the Kamo River Delta, I could see the kanji for big on the mountain in the distance, illuminating clearly by the evening sun. I bet you can see the bonfire really well from here. I nearly began imagining what it would be like to stand there with Akashi and watch the shape of the Okuribi burn, but daydreaming out in the evening breeze wouldn't satisfy me anyhow, so I found a good stopping point and cut it out. Having given up, I returned to my 4.5 map Tatami room and read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but even if I tried to let my imagination take flight into this world of classic adventure, it was only my delusions that lifted off. I had the fantastical idea that the fortune teller, that God, and whatnot were connected. I tried quietly saying the word the fortune teller told me, Colossio. Seize your chance, she said. But how am I supposed to know what my chance is? Once the sun had gone down, Ozu came to visit. Thanks for last night, he said. You're as fast as ever when it comes to beating a retreat. You're as sulky as ever, he said. You have no S.O. S.O.? And you exiled yourself from your club, but it's not like you're a serious student. What the hell are you thinking? You better watch your mouth or I'll smack you dead. Smack me, sure, but dead? Why would you do such a horrible thing? Ozu grinned. Here, you can have this, so please improve your mood. What is it? I asked. Castella, oh, the cake that the god likes. I got a bunch from Master Higuchi. So, see, Master Higuchi also likes the cake, which the other god, the god with a really, really long name, likes. Yep, I'll bet he's got to be a god. So I'm sharing. I wonder if something's in that cake that's going to take him to another dimension. Huh? It's not every day I get a gift from you. See, it's suspicious. Something's in the cake. Well, it's because cutting up a huge castella and eating it alone is the far reaches of solitude. I want you to get a good taste of loneliness, Ozu said. Oh, that's what you're up to? Sure, I'll taste it. I'll keep tasting it till I'm damned well sick of it. Then Ozu spoke about his master, something he almost never did. See, something going on here. Oh, so back when my master wanted a seahorse, I found an aquarium on the street and took it to him. When I tried filling it up, it sprang a furious leak, and the water came rushing out, causing a whole scene. The master's whole room was soaked. Wait, what number is your master's room? It's the one directly above this. I flew into a rage. Previously, while I was away, there had been a flood on the second floor. When I got home, the water had dripped down to make all of my precious documents, both obscene and not obscene documents, soggy. Okay, that must be like his porn collection or something. But that wasn't the only damage I suffered. All my precious data, both obscene and not, was lost from my waterlogged computer. Oh no, his computer vanished into the electron sea. It goes without saying that this incident hastened the decay of my academic life. I thought I would complain, but getting involved with this unknown upstairs resident seemed like a pain, so I had left the matter unresolved. That was your doing? So your library of obscenities got a little wet. That's not such a big loss, is it? Ozu said impudently. Just get out already. I have shit to do. That I shall. We're doing a blackout hot pot party at Master Higuchi's tonight. Kicking Ozu and his smirk into the hallway, I finally achieved some calm. And the night deepened. Listening to the coffee burble, I stared at the castella Ozu had brought me. He had said that I should taste loneliness at the far reaches of solitude, but I had no intention of rolling over. I had resolved to quietly clear my mind and eat the cake with perfect calm. The sweet familiar smell seemed to send me back to my childhood. As I chowed down, I felt that it was actually quite depressing to eat this much castella on one's own, wrong as a human being, and it would be better to enjoy it more gracefully with someone pleasant, sipping some tea or something. Someone like, I was surprised to find myself thinking, Akashi! Absolutely not Ozu, but Akashi. The retreat from the Kamo River Delta, that god's meddling, the mysterious pronouncement from the fortune teller, the events at the yakiniku place, all those unexpected occurrences together made my heart weak, and my reason crumbled like a sugar cube. I wasn't even in the grips of a fiery crush to seek the companionship of a total stranger out of momentary loneliness was against my principles. Wasn't it precisely my scorning the uncouth students who ravenously pursued others when they could no longer endure their solitude that had distinguished, in a way that was infinitely close to disgracing, me as the obstructor of romance? Hadn't I indulged in a futile conflict and claimed a victory that was infinitely close to defeat? Then consider your chance mine. I'll be happy in your place. That's what Ozu had said at the yakiniku restaurant. While it wasn't as if I believed the stuff that shady God had said, and I didn't think Akashi was such a poor judge of people that she would be tricked by the likes of a perverted picky eater of a yokai like Ozu, I did feel like she was the kind of person who was broad-minded enough to be amused by even a yokai if she had some connection to him. He was in the engineering department like her, and they had both quit the same club. If, while I was twiddling my thumbs, the unthinkably strange outcome of Ozu and Akashi becoming intimate occurred, that would be very grave indeed. This wasn't merely an issue of my personal loneliness. Akashi's future was at stake. Overhead, a big moth that had slipped into my room at some point was fluttering noisily around the new fluorescent light. Soon I heard a woman and a man talking. When I strained my ears to listen, the voices seemed to be coming from the room next door. It didn't sound unlike sweet nothings, stifled laughter. I went out into the hall to check, but there was no light coming from the little window above the door. Yet when I pressed my ear to the wall, syrupy whispers. Ooh, he's being nosy. The person next door was a study abroad kid from China. These two had come from the continent across the sea and met in this foreign land. Surely they struggled with some aspects of living in a different country. It's only human nature for two people in that situation to grow close, so it's not my place to talk. I know that, and yet I couldn't overlook it. In a room with the lights dimmed, precious murmurs were being exchanged in Chinese, so it wasn't even possible to dispel my melancholy by listening in. I so regretted not taking Mandarin as my second language that I ate more castella. I will not lose. I refuse to lose to loneliness. In order to distract myself, I asserted my determination to no one in particular by chomping into the whole castella, but after biting it like a wild animal into its boxy shape from every possible angle, I finally returned to myself. Holding back the juices that threatened to spring from my tear ducts, the emptiness was so profound that I gently set the cake down. I took a good look at it. The mess of mercilessly half-eaten castella didn't even look like castella anymore. It looked just like that ancient Roman building, the Colosseum. Colosseo. I said it quietly. What a roundabout fortune that old lady told. I remembered meeting Akashi before quitting the club. The spring welcome screening was taking place in a lecture hall at the university. As soon as I rolled Momotaro, I slipped out under the cover of darkness and walked to the club room situated in one corner of the campus. No matter how much of a moron Jogasaki was, I was sure he would catch on after a few minutes. It was clear that once that happened, his lackeys would string me up, so I had left the screening to clear my personal articles out of the club room. The golden light of evening made the campus's fresh green sparkle, and for some reason I recall how the leaves glimmered like candy. I had stayed in this club for 2 years without really knowing why, but apparently leaving still made me sentimental. Ozu had arrived ahead of me and was already looking for his stuff and filling his backpack. He was like a yokai rummaging through human bones. I admired him for being so thoroughly spooky and quick to escape. "You're so fast," I groaned. "I hate any kind of trouble. I don't want to deal with any loose ends, so I'll just disappear as quickly as possible. Of course, I've already clipped my loose ends." Yeah, I packed my personal things in a bag and I brought for that purpose. And after looking through the collections of manga and novels I had been keeping there, I decided to leave them all. You could consider it a donation. "You don't have to quit with me, you know." "I'm shocked. You can even say that after what you made me do. What kind of idiot would I be if I stayed alone?" Ozu replied crankily. "And also, unlike you, I'm living a multifaceted student life. I have any number of other places where I belong." "I've been wondering about that for a while. What else are you up to?" "I'm a member of a secret society. I have to take care of my master. I was in a religious club, and my love life keeps me busy." Wait, I thought you didn't have a girlfriend, I said. Meh. What's that lecherous grin for? Not telling. What's going on here? As we were searching around the club room, Ozu suddenly said, "Ah, someone's coming." Before I could even say, "Wait," he had shouldered his backpack and flown out of the room, truly a master of speedy exits. Just as I grabbed my bag to go after him, Akashi walked in. "Oh, Akashi." When I stopped to acknowledge her, she took a swig of a bottle of cola and furrowed her brows to glare at me. "You made another dumb movie, huh?" she said. "I watched part of it." "They didn't stop it?" "The audience is into it, so they can't stop it even if they want to. But Aijima and a few of those guys are looking for you. I'm sure they'll be here soon. If you don't want to be obliterated, you should probably run for it." If the audience is laughing, that seems good." She shook her head. "This one isn't as good as your others. It makes me question your character." "Well, whatever. The point was to make it and run anyhow." Her eyes rested on the bag I was carrying. "Are you quitting?" "Duh." "Right. I guess after making a film like that, with this, your last shred of respectability has been blown away," she said. Man, she does not mince her words. She's very blunt. I emitted a laugh that was empty even for me. "That was the idea." "You're such an idiot." "Yes, I am." "You were originally planning on showing a film where Ozu reads Tale of the Heiki, right? I wanted to see that." "If you want to watch it, I'll give it to you," I said. "Really? Make it a promise." Oh, she's interested in his work. "Okay, the next time I see you. Still, I'm not sure if it has any merit." "It's a promise," she insisted. "I'm leaving my manga, so I hope you'll read it." For 2 years, I had engaged in a fruitless battle and fruitlessly polished my character in that space I was leaving. I thought if my final work could rain on Jogasaki's charisma parade, that would be great. Although, to be honest, part of me felt it was impossible and had already given up. When I stopped at the door and turned around, Akashi was sitting down, about to read some of the manga I had left behind. "Farewell then, Akashi. Don't be tricked by the Jogasaki magic." She looked up with a frown. "Do I look like that much of a dimwit to you?" Just then, I saw Aijima and a bunch of his rather robustly built lackeys rushing toward the club room. I took off without replying to her. Hanging my sleepy head after spending the night with reason and loneliness, truly a pair of formidable rivals, grappling in a death match, I headed to school. I spent the whole day fretting about this and that, so I hardly remember anything. I'm the type of man, after analyzing in such details that there is nothing left to analyze, calmly takes the safest measure. I analyze even at the risk of it being too late to take the safest option. I analyze multiple patterns of how Akashi's life, Ozu's life, and my life could go, comparing, weighing, and mulling over all the outcomes. I also considered who should be happy and who should not, but I reached a conclusion with surprising speed. I also considered whether I could, after all this time, obstructing people on their path to love, destined to be kicked to death by a horse, change my ways. This was a rather more difficult question. About the time indigo twilight began to blanket the area, I came home from school. Taking a breather in my room, I mulled my options for the last time. Finally making up my mind, I proceeded to the room where I was to meet the god. Although I had been living at Yusuiso for 2 years, it was my first time going up to the second floor. Many things had been left in the second floor hallway, and it was even grimier than the first floor. It was as chaotic as a city street, and the farther down you walked, the darker it got. It seemed like it might very well connect up with a back alley in Kiyamachi. I went all the way to the end. The room number was 210. Outside the door were a chair with armrests and an ottoman, a dusty aquarium, a faded carillon figure, a banner from the used book fair, and other items in a jumble. There was no room to step. I felt that the place lacked the formality one would expect of a god's residence. I considered fleeing the messy second floor and returning to the peaceful first floor to live quietly out the rest of my days. These were some idiotic hopes to have, even for me, and I plunged into a pit of self-loathing. There was no name on the door plaque. At any rate, I decided that if it was a joke, that was fine. I would laugh and get it over with. Thus I manned up and knocked. What? Fuahiai! With a dopey cry, the god popped his head out. Oh, it's you. So what did you decide? He asked so simply, as if he were inquiring about my weekend plans. It can't be Ozu. Please pair me with Akashi. Oh, the god smiled. Very good. Take a seat right there and wait 1 second. With that, he slipped back into his room. Some rummaging noises came from inside. I couldn't get myself to sit on the dust-shrouded chair, so I just stood there in the hallway. After a moment, the god appeared and said, All right, let's go. Follow me, my good sir. Where were we going? It couldn't be that he had to go make a sacrifice at Shimogamo Shrine or something, right? Anxiously trembling, I followed him, but he didn't go to Shimogamo Shrine. He passed Shimogamo Saryo, casting its light out into the dusk, and continued striding briskly south. As I was racking my brains, we reached Demachiya Yanagi Station. Then he followed the river to Imadegawa Dori and stopped to stand at the eastern end of Kamo Ohashi, where he looked at his wristwatch. What are we doing? I asked, but he laid a finger against my lips and said nothing. The area was submerged in indigo twilight by this time. The Kamo River Delta was occupied by lively college kids. The river was running high from the rain that had lasted until just the other day, and it rushed noisily past, and the lights reflecting here and there the surface of the water looked like a sheet of metallic paper being waved like a stage prop. Imadegawa Dori was busy, and the bridge was packed with brilliant head and tail lights. The orange lights affixed at intervals along the bridge's thick railing shone with a hazy, mystical air in the darkness. Kamo Ohashi felt larger than usual on this night. As I was standing there absent-mindedly, the god clapped me on the back. All right, time to cross the bridge. Why? My good sir, Akashi will come from the opposite direction. Say something to her. Invite her to a cafe or something. I chose this romantic setting precisely for that purpose. I can't. I refuse. Why not? Don't be a brat. Go on. Get out there and do it. Isn't this a bit strange? You said you're going to Izumo this autumn to do the matchmaking, right? We're not a pair yet, so anything I do now would be pointless. Oh, he's just making excuses now. He's nervous. So you're the type to cut up some weird logic, Even if I make the match, you still need to set up your move. Now go. With a shove from the god, I was on my way across the bridge to the west side. How irritating. There should be a limit to how much you're allowed to tease someone, I was thinking, when a voice from behind me shouted, Hey, there's going to be a strange fellow walking ahead of Akashi, but don't pay him any mind. I continued walking, and had passed by a few people when I saw a face I recognized coming towards me. An ominous set of features appeared in the glow of the railing lamplight. A yokai you couldn't forget, even if you wanted to, that Nurahihyon. Why is he here? I narrowed my eyes at him in a glare. Ozu smiled at me. Then, with a bitter little hop, he socked me in the stomach. Ugh. With no regard for me groaning in pain, he continued toward the east end of the bridge. Where I was stopped, holding my stomach, was about the middle of the bridge, and the Kamo River was flowing by directly below. That's such a weird encounter. I'll bet Ozu was told by, his god to do this? It seems like a setup. Glancing south, farther down the dark river's course, I saw the distant Shijo neighborhood's lights gleaming like jewels. That was when Akashi came along. I was about to call out to her, perfectly unruffled, when I suddenly became flustered. Aw, so he's nervous! I was her trustworthy older friend and had no trouble talking to her on any normal day, But the moment I decided to clear my name of the title Obstructor of Romance and cool-headedly move forward with this matchmaking scheme, my body tensed up as stiff as if I'd been reinforced with an iron rod, and my mouth was as parched as the surface of Mars. Oh, he's nervous. It's okay. People get nervous, especially in situations like these. This is normal. My eyes refused to focus and my vision swirled. Okay, he might be a little too nervous. I forgot how to breathe. Okay, breathe, guy. Inhaling as weakly as someone at death's door. Okay, he can get through this. He can do it. That is, I looked shadier than I ever had in my entire life, and if it meant I could evade Akashi's suspicious gaze, I felt I could hurl myself into the roaring currents of the Kamo River and escape Kyoto with no regrets. No, this is funny. Evening, Akashi said with a guarded look. Were you able to make your getaway the other day? Yes, thanks to you. Are you on a walk? Uh-huh. With that, my brain of so many wrinkles ceased all operations. Silence is golden. "'Kay then," she said as she moved to pass me. It was unavoidable. Having devoted myself all the time to obstructing people on their path to love, I had never learned the first thing about how to race down such a path, and I was so damned proud my path to love was practically buried in a thicket of self-esteem. So how was I supposed to race down it without any shame? I at least needed some practice. Well, right now is good practice. And she knows him, so, I think she'd give him a little more grace than, just a stranger or someone you barely know. This is far enough for today. No, I've done all I could. No, nice work, buddy. Really, no, go for it. Just as Akashi and I were about to go our separate ways, we suddenly noticed a creepy monster perched forebodingly on the railing next to us. It's Ozu. As we leapt out of the way. Standing on the railing was Ozu. He's trying to get them together, right? I had no idea what he was thinking, but the lamplight illuminated his face from below, giving him a spooky air. We stood next to each other, looking up at him. What are you doing up there? I asked, and he made a face as if he were ready to bite my head off. You're not thinking this is far enough for today, are you? See, Ozu's part of the plan. I have no words for how disgusted I am with you. Quit disobeying the god and sprint down your path to love. See, Ozu knows what's going on. Suddenly I remembered what was going on and glanced toward the east edge of the bridge. I'm just going to call him Kamo because his name is way too long. So Kamo was standing there with his arms crossed, observing our exchange with great interest. So you were the mastermind behind this whole scheme, Ozu? Everything made sense. I see. You got me, you asshole. Oh, he thinks Ozu got Kamo to act a god. What? What's going on? Akashi whispered. Didn't you promise the god of Shimogamo's shrine, said Ozu. This is your chance. Now seize it. Look, can't you? Akashi is standing right there. Yeah, thanks a lot. Oh no, he thinks this is all a setup and a big joke from Ozu. He's not going to go through with it. If you don't take the plunge right now, I'm jumping. Ozu blurted some nonsense and turned his back to us. He spread his arms wide as if he was going to jump at any moment. Hold on, what does my path to love have to do with you jumping off the railing? I asked. I'm not sure either, replied Ozu. Ozu, the river's running high. It's dangerous. You could drown. Akashi began reasoning with him as well. As we were having this meaningless exchange, a shriek shot up from the Kamo River Delta north of the bridge. The partying kids had begun running around in a panic. What's that? Ozu said, bending over slightly with a puzzled look on his face. Without thinking, I pressed up against the railing to look. Something like a black fog, eerily spread out from Aoi Park to the Kamo River Delta, swiftly coating the delta's bank below, and within that black fog was a muddle of young people. What? They were half mad, flailing their arms and ripping out their hair. The black fog glided along the river and seemed to be heading straight for us. The clamoring on the Kamo River Delta grew even louder. Black fog poured continuously out from the pine grove. There was nothing to sniff at. With a trembling, fluttering, rustling, and flapping, the wriggling black fog was spreading out like a carpet below us when it began to rise up from the river surface before suddenly exploding over the railing and rushing onto Kamo Ohashi. Yeah! Akashi emitted a shriek straight out of a manga. It was a swarm of moths. Oh! So, I was looking at the cover, and yeah, there's moths here. I'm guessing this is Akashi. I'm guessing this is the main character. I kind of imagined him as kind of like a normal looking guy. And is this the god? He was described to have like an eggplant head. Or is this Ozu? I'm assuming this is the god guy because he looks a little strange. A news item appeared in the next day's Kyoto Shimbun, but no one knew exactly why the extraordinary number of moths had appeared. Retracing their flight path, they seemed to have come from Tadasu no Mori, that is, Shimogamo Shrine. But this wasn't clear. Even if every moth that lived in Tadasu no Mori had decided to migrate all at once, there wasn't a good reason for it. Apart from the official explanation, there were rumors that the moths had come not from Shimogamo Shrine, but the neighborhood next to it, Shimogamo Izumikawacho. But that only made the story even stranger. Apparently, it was the area right around my apartment that had been flooded with moths and thrown into an uproar. When I returned to my room that night, there were dead moths strewn throughout the hallway. My door was half open, as I had forgotten to lock it, so there were moth corpses all over my room too. I gave them a respectful burial. Pushing my way through the swarm of moths as they flapped into my face, sprinkling their scales around, sometimes trying to force their way into my mouth, I moved to Akashi and protected her like a total gentleman. Aw! I used to be a city slicker, so I had been above living alongside insects. But after residing in my lodgings for 2 years, I'd had numerous opportunities to become familiar with all manner of arthropods, so bugs didn't bother me anymore. That huge swarm of moths, though, was beyond the realm of common sense. The awful sound of their beating wings cut us off from the outside world. It was less like moths and more like little winged yokai passing over the bridge. I couldn't see much of anything. Through the slits of my barely open eyes, I could make out a riot of moths fluttering around the orangey glow of the lamps on the railing and Akashi's shiny black hair. Once the swarm had finally gone, a few stragglers had been left fluttering here and there. Akashi stood up with a deathly pale face and screamed, "Are there any on me? Are there any on me?" As she frantically brushed off every part of her body before running toward the western end of the bridge at a tremendous speed to flee the moths twitching on the ground. It was in front of the cafe, casting a soft glow under the twilight, that she eventually crumpled. The swarm of moths became a black carpet again and went down the river to Shijo. I noticed the yukata-clad god was standing next to me, looking over the railing. His eggplant-shaped face was all scrunched up, and it was hard to tell whether he was laughing or crying. "I think Ozu really did fall in," he said. The god and I ran down to the bank from the western end of the bridge. Before our eyes, from left to right, roared the Kamo River. Since the river was running high, areas that were unusually underbrush were submerged, so it was wider than usual. We entered the water from there and approached the area beneath the bridge. Something wriggled in the shadows by the foot of the bridge. Ozu was clinging onto it like a piece of litter, apparently unable to move. The water wasn't deep, but the current was fast, and despite his divinity, the god got his feet swept out from under him and was nearly washed away. It took a lot of effort, but we finally reached the Ozu-like thing. "You idiot," I screamed, getting doused in the spray of the river, and Ozu wheezed with half-crying laughter. "Look what I found," he proudly thrust out his hand, which was clenched around a spongy little bear plushie. Oh, that was on the cover too. It's right here. Oh, there's like 3 of them. Oh, 4 of them. Okay. It was floating here. He was groaning in pain. Foolish me, it's not free to take all that grist to the mill. Okay, just shut up, said the god. Yes, master. For some reason, my right leg is in terrible pain, Ozu confessed. Oh, master. Is this the same guy that Ozu's been seeing? You're Ozu's master, I asked. Yes. Okay, I thought it would be a different god, but it's the same guy who's been talking to our main character? That I am, he smiled broadly. With the help of the god, who was also Ozu's master, I lifted Ozu up. Ow, 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 please be more gentle. Ozu made extravagant demands as we carried him to dry land. Akashi had come down to the riverbed after us. The shock of being buffeted by the swarm of moths had left her pale, but she had called an ambulance without missing a beat. After calling the emergency number, she sat on a bench with her hands over her pale cheeks. We rolled Ozu like a log and shivered as our clothes dried. It hurts, it really hurts. Do something, he moaned. Quit your whining. It's your fault for climbing up on the railing, I said. The ambulance will be here soon, so just deal with it till then. You're quite a promising disciple, Ozu, said Ozu's master. Thank you, master. But doing anything for your friends doesn't mean breaking bones. You're an incorrigible idiot. Ozu cried softly. It took about 5 minutes for the ambulance to arrive at the end of Kamo Ohashi. Ozu's master ran up the bank and came down with the medical techs. The techs wrapped Ozu in a blanket and loaded him onto a stretcher with skills pros could be proud of. It would have been hilarious if they had just thrown him into the river like that, but emergency workers are admirable individuals who sympathize with all injured people equally. Ozu was packed into the ambulance with a gravity disproportionate to his nasty ways. I'll go with Ozu, said his master, and he leisurely boarded the ambulance. A moment later, it had driven away. The only ones left were Akashi on the bench, holding her pale face, and me sopping wet. I had the bear plushie Ozu had been clenching as he clung to the foot of the bridge. When I squeezed it, it made a helpless face as water dribbled out. I've never seen a bear dribbling with so much ennui, I thought. Are you okay? I asked Akashi. I really can't handle moths, she groaned, still seated on the bench. Why don't we get some coffee to calm down? I suggested. Okay, so now they're going to go on the coffee date. It's not as if I was thinking anything so rude as stooping to using her weakness against moths to my advantage. Seeing her so pale, I was offering out of concern. I walked to the nearest vending machine and bought 2 hot coffees, which we drank together. She gradually relaxed. Kneading the little bear plushie over and over, she cocked her head a number of times. This is a mochi guma, she said. A mochi guma? She said she had a few of the same type that she loved. Their squishiness was of a rare quality that she named them mochi bears and collected 5 to create the fluffy mochi Gooman Rangers. Okay, so that's why there's 5 bears on the cover. Thus, poking their squishy bottoms became her daily healing practice. But the previous year, she had attached one to her backpack and lost it at the Shimogamo Shrine used book fair. Ever since then, she had no way of knowing where the poor bear had gone. So this is the one, I asked? It's awfully strange. What's a mochi guma doing here? Oh, it is. It must have floated down the river. That was my guess. It's just something Ozu found, so it's fine for you to take it. For a moment she looked doubtful, but then her expression changed. Her face seemed to say, at any rate, I'm glad the mochi guman are back together. And she straightened up. It looked like she had recovered from the shock of being attacked by the swarm of moths. Today, Ozu invited me out to the cafe. Then he told me to cross Kamo Ohashi. I wonder what that was about. I don't know. But he's such a goofy guy. Once I saw him run diagonally across the Hyakumonben intersection waving a big Ferrari flag. Don't pay attention to him. You might catch the stupid. She nodded, humming to herself. It's too late for you, huh? As far as I can tell, you caught it pretty bad. Man, she does not mince her words. I sat there in disappointment until... Oh, I just remembered. What? She asked. I promised I would give you that thing. I mentioned the film I had made just before exiling myself from our club. That film of Ozu reading Tale of Heike was impenetrable even for me. Oh, that, she said happily. We agreed to meet and talk the next week, when I would give her the aforementioned film. We chose Madoi, the restaurant on the southwest corner of the Hyaku-Manben intersection, for a place to talk, and had dinner together merely because it happened to be convenient. They're going on a date, sort of. Opinions were split about the film's production quality, and I myself was more on the negative side, but Akashi at least was satisfied. See, she liked it. How my relationship with Akashi developed after that is a deviation from the point of this manuscript. Therefore, I shall refrain from writing the charming, bashfully giddy details. No, we want the charming, bashfully giddy details. You probably don't want to pour your time down the drain reading such detestable drivel anyhow. Aw, he's being shy. There's nothing so worthless to speak of as a love mature. Aww. It's not fair for you to assume that I naively approve of my past just because there have been some new developments in my student life lately. I'm not the kind of man who would so readily affirm his past mistakes. Certainly I considered giving myself a big loving embrace, but regardless of how it would go with a black-haired maiden of a tender age, who would have any interest in hugging a mess of a 20-something guy? Driven by that inescapable anger, I firmly refused to give my past self-salvation. I can't shake the feeling that I never should have signed up for the Ablutions Film Club at the foot of that fateful clock tower. I think about what could have happened if I had chosen something else. If I had answered that bizarre ad for a disciple, or chosen... bizarre ad for a disciple. Is that what the ad that Ozu answered? I wonder if that's the god. Or chosen the mellow softball club. Or if I had joined that underground organization Lucky Cat Chinese Food, I would have had a very different couple of years. At least it's clear that I wouldn't be as warped as I am now. I might have attained that elusive treasure, a rose-colored campus life. You know, you don't have to have like a rose-colored campus life. You can make now as good as you can make it. You can make it like right now, even after you've graduated, even before you graduated, like whenever. You can make like today a good life. So he's like, even after he gets a relationship, he still has this he's idealizing potential futures that could have happened for him. So sounds like from the description, he is gonna go on adventures and see like different alternate realities of his life, which is gonna be cool. No matter how I try to avert my eyes, I can't deny the fact that the past 2 years have been utterly wasted on a pile of mistakes. But mistakes are fine as long as you learn from them. You know, if you make no mistakes at all, that makes it so that you might make the same mistakes just later in life. So for him to learn an important lesson about, choosing life paths wisely and your choices making an impact on your future, like even long term, the choices you make today can impact your life decades in the future. And for him to learn this lesson in his, 21? That's fine. That's what people do. So he's trying to be like perfect, but nobody's perfect. More than anything, the stain of having met Ozu is sure to linger for the rest of my days. But you learned a lot, being friends with Ozu. So I don't know why he's trying to like scrub his past. Ozu stayed in the hospital next to the school for a little while. I have to say, it felt pretty great to see him strapped onto the crisp white bed. He always had such a horrible complexion that he looked like a patient with an untreatable illness, but it was just a broken bone. I suppose it's lucky that he got away with just a broken bone. He grumbled that he wasn't able to perpetrate any of the misdeeds he preferred over 3 square meals a day, but I just thought that's what you get. When his grumbles got to be too much, I crammed the castella I brought him into his mouth to shut him up. Still, though, he showed what could only be called an incredible eccentricity in coming up with this idiotic plan, roping in his master, and even falling off Kamo Ohashi for no reason and breaking his leg, all just to get Akashi and me together. See, he's a bro. His way of enjoying life made absolutely no sense to me. He's trying to help you, nor did it need to. So now you've learned your lesson and can quit meddling in other people's business, right? I said with my mouth full of castella. But Ozu shook his head. No, thank you. I mean, what else do I have to do? This guy is rotten straight to the core. What is so fun about toying with me and my innocence? I grilled him. Ozu put on his usual yokai grin and laughed his head off. It's my love language. Gross, you can spare me, I replied. Oh, he's trying to help him. That's so nice. Okay, so now we're going to go on to part 2. Okay, I took a little break, but let's get into part 2 of Tatami and a masochistic proxy war. Okay, let's just say I accomplished absolutely nothing during the 2 years leading up to the spring of my junior year in college. Are we going back in time? Is this the same thing? Yeah, let's say I accomplished absolutely nothing during the 2 years. Okay, let's read. Maybe not. Every move I made in my quest to become an able participant in society, to associate wholesomely with members of the opposite sex, to devote myself to my studies, to temper my flesh, somehow missed its mark, and I ended up making all sorts of moves, as if on purpose, that need not have been made at all. To isolate myself from the opposite sex, to abandon my studies, to allow my flesh to deteriorate. How did that happen? Okay, yeah, we are definitely like in the time loop. I'm not sure what happened. I guess I do have mixed feelings on him getting together with Akashi. You know, I was rooting for them before, but at the end, he seemed to still have regrets. Even though he was happy with Akashi, they seemed fine. I don't know, he didn't seem completely content. I don't know, that's just the impression that I got. I'm sure they're fine, and that would have been a nice life, but yeah, let's see if... I'm kind of wondering if this is kind of like when you play one of those romance games where you have like all sorts of different options on who you can romance, and the dynamic between the two characters are different depending on, you know, who you choose and who you pick. So I'm wondering if this book is kind of like that. You know, you see different options and you reset it and go from the beginning, but let's find out. We must ask the person responsible, and who is responsible. It's not as if I was born this way. Fresh from the womb, I was innocence incarnate, every bit as precious. Okay, so we have read this before. Let's see if there's anything different. Okay, Prince Genji. Okay, you're still young. Okay, and then he's talking about how the soul of a child at 3 remains the same. So he's basically saying, you know, there's a saying that says somebody's personality is basically fixed once you reach 3 years old. So I'm wondering if he has to go back into the past so far that he's like a toddler. Okay, the main okay, is this different? Yeah, I think this part is different, but let's check. So all of this was the same, all of this. I can't look away, but it's so hard to watch. Okay, yep, this is different, this part. The main character in this memoir is me. The second leading role is Master Higuchi. Sandwiched between these two noble men is a supporting character with a stunted soul, Ozu. First, regarding myself, apart from that fact that I was a proud third-year student. Oh, third year? Wasn't he a second year before? There is not much to say, but for your convenience, readers, I'll explain what kind of man I am. Say you're in Kyoto, strolling west from the Kawaramachi Sanjo district through an arcade. It's a spring weekend, so there are many people out and about. As you're walking along, gazing at the souvenir shops, the Lipton tea house, and so on, a black-haired maiden coming this way catches your eye. It's almost as if the space around her, and only her, sparkles. Her beautiful, melancholy eyes look up at the man walking next to her. He must be a bit over 20, clear eyes, neat, dark eyebrows, a pleasant smile gracing his cheeks. No matter what direction or how acrobatic an angle you observe him from, his visage is flawless and intelligent. It would never be taken as the face of an idiot. He's about 5'11" with a sturdy frame, but he certainly doesn't give off any blatant wild animal energy. Though he appears to be in a relaxed mood as he walks, there is power in his gait. In everything he does, there is dignity and a comfortable amount of tension. This is a man completely in control of himself. I'll come out and say what I'd like you to think of that man as me. This is merely for your convenience, as I would never dream of embellishing reality, nor do I want to be squealed about by high school girls, nor, yeah, he does want to be, nor do I want to be class representative and receive my diploma directly from the hand of the president of the school. Okay, this is a bit specific. I think he does want these things. I have no such disingenuous aspirations. So readers, I kindly ask that you take this aptly depicted man, burn that image into your brain as me, and maintain it throughout. Okay, so, I mean, the guy he's describing does sound nice, especially, you seems kind of wholesome. He's clean. His visage is flawless and intelligent. Yeah, that's who he wants to be. And he can be. He can be. It's he just cleans himself up and focus on his studies so it makes him intelligent and be a hard worker. It doesn't give off any blatant wild animal energy, which makes me think that's what he thinks of himself, that he has like a wild animal energy. He's kind of out of control. He doesn't really have much discipline. True, there is no black-haired maiden next to me. There may be other discrepancies as well, but those are trivial matters. It's the heart that counts. This is so cute. I really like how this book is written. Next, I'll write about Master Higuchi. I lived in room 110 of the Kowloon-like apartment building Shimogamo Yusu-Isu in Shimogamo Izumikawacho, while his residence was directly above in room 210. For the 2 years until our abrupt parting at the end of May of my third year, I was his disciple. As a result of ignoring my studies in favor of his training, I'm sure I learned only things that are useless, cultivated only those qualities a person should not cultivate, and failed to cultivate those that should have been cultivated until they were no longer visible at all. So it sounds like he almost traded places with Ozu, because Ozu was the one who had, the master that lived above the main character's apartment. So before, the main character didn't have any master, and he was just kind of floating through life. But now it sounds like he traded places with Ozu. Rumor had it that Master Higuchi was in his 8th year. Just as a long-lived animal acquires a mystical air, so too does a student who spends many years at university. He always had a carefree grin on his eggplant-shaped face, and there was something noble about him you couldn't quite put your finger on. but his chin was forever scruffy. He always wore a navy yukata, and in winter he threw an old jacket over it. He'd show up to a chic cafe looking like that and leisurely sip a cappuccino. Man, how is he affording all this? He didn't even own, oh, he's a god, so, I mean, okay. He didn't even own a fan, but he knew probably hundreds of places one could cool off for free on hot summer days. His hair was nothing short of improbable in its unruliness and always looked like a typhoon had made landfall only on his head. He often puffed cigars. Sometimes he seemed to remember he was a student and show up to classes, but no matter how many credits he had acquired at this point, it was surely too late. Despite not knowing a word of Mandarin, he got along well with the Chinese study abroad kids who lived in our building. Once I saw one of the girls giving him a haircut. He had started reading a copy of Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea that I lent him, but he was taking his time, as it had been almost a year and he hadn't returned it. The globe he had taken from me was on display in his room, and he had stuck cute little pins in it. I later learned that they charted the position of the submarine Nautilus. He didn't take any sort of action, but boldly specialized in simply living his life. That was either a gentlemanly manner maintained by formidable self-control or the height of idiocy. Lastly, I'll write about Ozu. He was in the same year as me. Despite being registered in the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, he hated electricity, electronics, and engineering. At the end of freshman year, he had received so few credits and with such low grades that it made you wonder whether there was any point to him being there, but Ozu himself didn't give a damn. Okay, we had already read this. Yeah, we had already read this part too. So let's compare. This is just a description of Ozu, how he doesn't eat vegetables, and it makes him look weird. Okay, yeah. Ozu, here's the electronics engineering. On that note. Okay. Oh. This is like on that note, and this is the Ablutions Film Club. Oh. Okay, this is the same. Okay, so this is a little different down here. On that note, we must say that becoming a disciple of Master Higuchi in the spring of my freshman year was my first big mistake. Okay, so our main character became a disciple of Master Higuchi first in this universe, and then Ozu also becomes a disciple. At the time, I was a fresh as a daisy man. I remember how exhilarating the vibrant green of the cherry tree leaves was after all the flower petals had fallen. Any new student, okay, this is also the same. He's talking about all the different clubs. So the Ablutions Film Club, so in this universe, he didn't join the Ablutions Film Club. And he must have chosen the bizarre Disciples Wanted notice. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the same. Okay, I think this might be different. After my classes were over, I headed to the clock tower. All kinds of clubs were meeting there to take new students to orientations. The area around the clock was bustling with freshmen, cheeks flushed with hope, and welcoming committee members ready to prey on them. Okay, that's the same as well. Okay, he talks about his rose-colored campus life, like vision of what he wants in life. Okay, first I found several students waiting with a sign for the film club Ablutions. They were holding a screening to welcome new students and offered to show me the way. For whatever reason, I couldn't make up my mind to approach them, and I ended up going around to the other side of the clock tower. As I walked, I read one of the flyers I had taken more closely. First, in a bigger font than the rest, it said, Disciples Wanted. Okay, so I'm sure we're gonna so we've already gone through the Ablutions Film Club. We're now going through the Disciples Wanted universe. I'm guessing the third universe is going to be the Mellow Softball Club, and the fourth is the underground organization's Lucky Cat Chinese Food Club. Okay, so here's the Disciples Wanted notice. With his all-seeing eyes, he can pick the maiden on his mind out of the crowd. With his all-hearing ears, he doesn't miss even the sound of cherry blossoms fluttering into the canal. Appearing all over town and disappearing without a trace, he comes and goes freely between the earth and skies. Surely there is no one in this land of the gods unfamiliar with his name, no one who doesn't fear him, no one who would defy him. Yes, he is Seitaro Higuchi. Come, youth of mystical potential, meet on April 30th beneath the clock tower. No phone number available. Okay, yeah, so I personally would never go here. I would think it would be some kind of weird cult. Even maybe I'd like watch from a distance or from the bushes just to like listen in, but I'd be kind of scared of this, like they're gonna try to scam me out of money or something. There are many suspicious flyers in the world, but surely none as suspicious as this. Exactly. Now, nevertheless, I thought that maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to jump headfirst into this mysterious world, put in the effort, and make some moves towards the glorious future I deserve. Okay. There's nothing wrong with a desire for self-improvement, but if you err in choosing your direction, you're in trouble. Yeah, and this seems like a bad decision. As I was poring over the flyer, a voice called out to me, "My good sir." I turned around to see a suspicious character standing behind me. Though this was a college campus, he wore a navy yukata and was puffing on a cigar, and his chin was flecked with scruff. It wasn't clear whether he was a student or not. On one hand, he was putting his innate shadiness on full display, but there was also something noble about him, and his smiling face was actually charming. This was Master Higuchi. "Did you read the flyer? I'm recruiting disciples." "Disciples for what?" "Well, we don't have to jump right into specifics, do we? This is your senior disciple." Standing next to Master Higuchi was a creepy fellow with a terribly inauspicious-looking face. At first I thought he was a messenger from hell, only I, with my heightened sensitivities, could see. "My name's Ozu. Nice to meet you," he said. "He's your senior, but only by about 15 minutes, Higuchi quipped with a dry laugh. After that, we were taken to a drinking establishment at the Hyakumaben intersection, and it was the one and only time our master ever treated me to anything. I wasn't used to drinking alcohol, so I loosened up considerably, and when I learned that Master Higuchi lived in the same building as me, we really hit it off. Yeah, that's a bad sign. It's like when you first meet someone shady, he wants you to, get drunk. so your brain starts shutting off so he can like manipulate you easier. From there, we tumbled into Master Higuchi's 4.5 mat tatami room, and for the rest of the night, Ozu, our master, and I engaged in heated, meaningless debate. Ozu, who at first was about as talkative as a god of death standing at your bedside, began giving an impassioned lecture about breasts. A deep debate about whether the breasts we see actually exist or not ensued. What? And after quantum mechanics entered the discussion, Master Higuchi made the profound observation that it doesn't matter whether they exist or not, it's whether you believe in them or not. What? Which was about the time I lost consciousness. Okay, I'm sure he didn't, miss anything when he passed out, with this kind of conversation. This is how I became Master Higuchi's disciple and how I met Ozu. What sort of a disciple was I, you ask? It goes without saying that even after 2 years, that never became clear. If you think that associating with such a tough customer as Master Higuchi requires patience, humility, manners, some sort of high-level finessing like that, you're fantastically mistaken. You can face him ostentatiously equipped with such finery, but the interactions will be lamentably devoid of benefits for either side. In order to associate with Master Higuchi, the one thing you cannot do without is tribute, that is, food and luxury items. In recent years, the only ones visiting the master were me and Ozu, Akashi, and a dental hygienist named Hanuki. That name sounds familiar. I'm trying to remember if this person was in the first part. But by one analysis, he was getting 90% of his dietary needs met via the tribute we brought him. See, he's scamming you guys. For the other 10%, we must have been subsisting on mountain mist. If we all cut ties with him, what would he do? If he ran out of food, he would take some sort of action, is amateur thinking. Even if his food ran out, he simply waited with confidence. That attitude was invincible state he had attained at the end of his strenuous training. If running out of food was enough to upset him, he would have been upset long ago by his poor finances and dearth of college credits. Our master wouldn't be troubled by such trifling matters. If it came down to running around to procure food for himself, he'd surely rather starve to death, making us think this was one of the techniques at which he excelled. So, I mean, if he's like acting like such a loser and a mooch, what are they learning from him? Like how to be a loser and a mooch and just kind of scrape by life with no plan and just kind of relying on college students to feed you? That's pretty sad. It's like making 18-year-olds, or I guess he's there in the third year, so making like 20, 21-year-olds like support you, like as an adult. I don't like this. Master Higuchi, I don't like him. I actually had the deluded thought that even if we didn't deliver him food, he wouldn't get hungry. Oh, because he's sensing that maybe he is a god. He seemed to have enough mystical aptitude to limitlessly delay his starvation to the point that he would forget to die. There aren't many students who have attained this state. I can't really imagine anything Master Higuchi would be afraid of, but there was just one time he uttered the word scared. The master not only failed to return the book I lent him, he failed to return his library books. When I said, "These are half a year overdue," he replied, "I know, that's why I'm scared of the library police." "There are library police?" I asked Ozu. "There are," he said with a frightened look on his face. "It's an organization that will resort to all manner of inhumane methods in order to force the return of overdue books." "You liar," I said. "You got me." Kyoto, Sakyo Ward, the approach to Yoshida Shrine, a secret meeting at midnight. Yoshida Shrine is known as a shrine so responsive to prayer that if you pray to pass your classes, you will absolutely fail. Every year, scores of high school and college students pray for academic success and instead experience the misery of repeating a year or so or having to retake their entrance tests. Surely their bitter tears would fill half of Lake Biwa. I had always kept a respectful distance from Yoshida Shrine, but even in that precaution, credits eluded me like sand slipping through my fingers. So yes, Yoshida Shrine's powers are fearsome. In those days of meager credits, I had no interest in setting foot inside the grounds of Yoshida Shrine, but various circumstances had compounded, and I was stuck attending a secret meeting on the path leading to them. It was May, 2 years since I had started college. During the day it was hot, but the night air was cool. The university's clock tower shone solitary in the darkness. There was almost no one along dimly lit Kano-dori. About the only people passing by were nocturnal students reminiscent of deep-sea creatures. If this were a sweet late-night rendezvous with an innocent black-haired maiden, I wouldn't have been averse to waiting all alone on the approach to Yoshida Shrine. I would have enjoyed the profoundly charming self-conscious giddiness that came with it. But the one showing up on this night was Ozu, a scheming yokai with a filthy Y chromosome. I considered just breaking the promise and going home, but then there would be no way I could face Master Higuchi. Thus concerned, I waited. Ozu had said he would come in a car he borrowed from Aijima, an upperclassman from a club he was in. Oh, Aijima, he was in the Ablutions Film Club, wasn't he? So Ozu is still in the film club in this universe. I killed time by imagining him getting turned into wisps of shredded flesh in a self-contained car accident that inconvenienced no one. Dude, what is the main character's problem? Eventually, a little bug of a car came down Higashi Ichijo Dori and parked next to the university's gate. A dark figure got out and walked towards me. Unfortunately, it was Ozu. "Good evening to you. Did you wait long?" he said cheerily. The reason his expression was extra intense, his face like he had just come around the corner from the first block of hell, had to be that he was just so excited for the night's plan. This was a man who fueled himself on the misfortune of others. Bear in mind that this shameless, vile operation came straight from his underbelly. None of it was my idea. I'm the exact opposite of him. I'm a saint. I'm a man of virtue. I participated against my will for the sake of our master. Yeah, he's a man of virtue and he's a saint, and he was just thinking about Ozu being killed and turned into wisps of shredded flesh in a self-contained car accident that inconvenienced no one. The main character is so goofy. And I'm sure everybody has known someone like this who's basically in Delulu land, who's just so delusional and thinks themselves, a pretty good person, even though they're not. We got into the car and entered the maze of a residential area that spread out to the south. Ozu was in a buoyant mood as he drove. But I think everybody's kind of a little bit like this, where, we kind of compare ourselves to other people who are worse than us. And Ozu, he does, the main character, he talks about Ozu like he's just this horrible person. But I haven't really seen Ozu do anything bad. Meanwhile, the main character is like having all these gross, evil fantasies about people being mangled to death. So it kind of makes you wonder. But I think everybody, they want to think of themselves as a good person. Not necessarily, not everyone thinks themselves a saint or a person of virtue, but we always like to think, I'm not so bad. I'm not that bad. I'm basically a good person. I do more good things than bad things. So that makes me a good person. Even though that's not necessarily true, you're still doing bad things, even though it's like less than other people or like better than other people. We all have our problems. Arg, Akashi not agreeing to the plan really puts a wrench in things. Her compassion comes out in the most unexpected situations, he said. Oh, so Akashi has compassion. She shows compassion through her actions. I like that. Akashi, she is a bit gruff. She's very blunt. She doesn't mince her words, which that part did kind of give me mixed feelings at the end of the first part, because I don't know, she can kind of be insulting, but what she's saying is usually the truth, and it is like exactly what she's feeling. She's not insulting anyone to be mean or to like put them in their place or to like for any alternative motive other than just to tell the truth. But yeah, I wasn't sure how good of a match she'd be with the main character who's like basically in Delulu land and thinks he's a man of virtue. Okay, no sane person would want to assist in this endeavor. I don't want to either. What are they gonna do? Oh, come on. I know you've actually been looking forward to it. Knowing the main character, he probably has, like deep down. I mean, he's there. He's not refusing to not go. It seems to be pretty easy to not go. Akashi's just like, no, I'm not going. They're not forcing her to. Okay, this is Ozu talking. Oh, come on. I've known you've actually been looking forward to it. Who would look forward to this? I'm just here on Master Higuchi's orders. And don't you forget it, I snapped back. You understand this is a crime, right? What are they doing? Is it? Ozu cocked his head. The cuteness of the motion disturbed me. It's a bunch of crimes. Unlawful entry, larceny, abduction? I listed them. It only counts as abduction if it's human, right? We're stealing a love doll. Do you have to say it like that? Have some tact, man. Oh, okay. You say that, but I'm sure you want to see what it's like. Oh, I've known you for years, so I know. You don't just want to look, you want to touch too. Your horn doggery is out of control. There was no excuse for the obscene face he made with this comment. Okay, I'm going home. When I took my seatbelt off and tried to open the door, Ozu said, "Oh, come on," in a coaxing voice. "I crossed a line there. Don't be cranky. This is for our master, right? The master wants like a love doll?" Okay, this is getting kind of weird. The beginning of it all is already buried in the darkness of history. But Master Higuchi called the battle the masochistic proxy war. Still, all you can glean from that vague title is that it appears to be some kind of dishonorable competition. About 5 years ago, a deep rift occurred between Master Higuchi and one Jogasaki from the Ablutions Film Club. The dishonorable war pitting impure essence against impure essence was triggered. Wow. And it was continuing even now in this very neighborhood. From time to time, Master Higuchi suddenly remembered to perpetrate some sort of harassment, and Jogasaki would retaliate. This was the cycle that repeated over and over. The warriors who became Master Higuchi's disciples in turn were all ensnared in this war, and the utter fruitlessness of it rode roughshod over their human dignity, and I was no exception. The only one who was perky as a fish in water was Ozu. This makes me think even less about Master Higuchi, even though he's a god. He's like engaging in these petty arguments and battles and wars with college students. Isn't Master Higuchi like thousands of years old or something? If he's a god, he's been doing matchmaking forever. Unless Jogasaki knows something and he's trying to get in the way of his matchmaking. I'm not sure what's going on. Jogasaki had been the head of the film club, and despite being enrolled as a PhD student, he boasted quite an influence behind the scenes. Unfortunately for him, Ozu was also a member. The previous fall, Ozu had schemed for all he was worth and ousted Jogasaki. Ozu was rotten to the core, so of course he played dirty. He incited Aijima to mount a coup d'etat. Jogasaki still blamed Aijima as the ringleader behind his downfall, having no idea that was actually Ozu pulling the strings. Perhaps not knowing what to do, with all his vitality after his position in the club, Jogasaki began harassing Master Higuchi again. After some mild skirmishes, a tragedy occurred at the end of April. Master Higuchi's beloved navy yukata was dyed pink. Master Higuchi ordered Ozu to mastermind a retaliation. Ozu put his talents for wicked intrigue on display and drew up his indefensibly cruel plan. We would kidnap Kaori. Jogasaki lived at the foot of Mount Yoshida and Yoshida Shimujicho. It was a recently renovated 2-story apartment building with a bamboo grove next door and some atmosphere. Under cover of night, Ozu and I got out of the car and pressed ourselves against the apartment building's concrete block wall. I felt like I too had become a messenger from hell, and from Jogasaki's point of view, it was true. We had come to abduct with the cruelest intentions, something he loved, so if we got labeled gods of death, we deserved it. So Kaori is the love doll? Oh my goodness. Ozu looked up along the wall. Jogasaki's room was on the southern end of the second floor. His light was still on. Huh? What's he doing? He's still in his room, Ozu said in frustration. We need him to keep his promise to Akashi. She's got blood on her hands too. We wouldn't have put her up to it. Oh, we shouldn't have put her up to it. Oh, so is she helping behind the scenes? She's a fellow disciple, so it's not like this is so much to ask. Idiocy doesn't discriminate between sexes. That's true. We stood in an alley sandwiched by concrete block walls. Fidgeting in the darkness the street lights didn't reach, we gave free rein to the sketchiness that would have led anyone who saw us to report us on the spot. As we huddled there in the shadows, it seemed as though Ozu's dark essence had melted into the night and seeped into my body. If it had been a black-haired maiden, I'd have been willing to endure some huddling in the dark, but it was Ozu. Why did I have to be cuddling with this sinister-faced guy? Did I make a mistake somewhere along the way? Was I at fault? I wanted at least to be with someone whose spirit was a bit more kindred, or a black-haired maiden. Jogasaki being here complicates things. It's quite a wrench in our plan, Ozu said. We can't have Akashi an accessory to the crime. Let's call it off for today. Aw, he cares about Akashi. That won't do. I even borrowed Aijima's car. We can't quit now. Ozu frowned and pressed himself to the wall like a gecko. What the hell happened between Master Higuchi and Jogasaki anyway? Why do they prolong this pointless conflict? And why do we have to take part in this stuff? I asked. Exactly. It's the masochistic proxy war. What's that? Who knows? Ozu cocked his head. I sure don't. We should really be wasting our precious youth facilitating someone else's beef if no one even remembers how it started. Don't we have better things to do? This is training in order to become a bigger person. That said, standing here in the dark with you is absolutely pointless. Yes, that's my line. Why are you looking at me like that? Hey, don't hang all over me, I said. But I'm lonely and the night breeze is so cold. You're always lonely. Eek! Eventually, imitating senseless lovers' talk to kill time wore thin as well, and somehow I had the feeling we'd had a similar exchange before, which swept me up in an anger that had nowhere to go. Hey, didn't we have this conversation before? They did, when they were trying to set off fireworks during the Ablutions Film Club meeting. I think not. We're not that dumb. You're just having deja vu, that's all. Ozu suddenly crouched down, and I followed his lead. The light went off, he said. As we held our breath in darkness, a man's footsteps clanked as he came down the stairs. He brought a scooter out of the bicycle parking area. I had seen Jogasaki a few times before. He was a handsome guy who almost certainly had better things to do than pour his energy into the masochistic proxy war. He was so handsome, and what was I? Basically just the nasty palm sweat. Aw, so he's jealous. He doesn't feel good about himself. He's gorgeous, I groaned. You mustn't judge people by appearance. That's true. He may have a nice face, but all he thinks about is tits. You're one to talk. How rude. Tits are just one of the many areas I'm proficient in. Without noticing us pressed against the wall talking about tits, Jogasaki put his helmet on, mounted his scooter, and drove off to the east. We slid out from our hiding place and went around to the staircase. He won't be back for a while now, snickered Ozu. Where did he go? To the Karafuneya coffee on Shiwakawa Dori. Well, he'll drink a barrel of coffee and wait for probably like 2 hours without realizing that Akashi will never show up. The fool. Oh, so he likes Akashi too? We seriously suck. Okay, let's get back to work. Ozu went up the stairs, and so we illegally entered Jogasaki's place of residence, but it's not as if I'm an experienced lockpicker. Ozu had gotten a hold of a key through Jogasaki's ex-girlfriend, and not only a key, Ozu had acquired knowledge of even the most personal details of Jogasaki's life. He was so meticulous in his craft that he even had in his possession letters Jogasaki had been writing to a certain woman. Dang, man, he got the intel. Ozu would say grandiose things like, the one who rules the information rules the world. And in reality, he was a regular Enma, king of hell. His register was packed so densely, it was like a Heibonsha world encyclopedia of people's embarrassing secrets. Every time I thought about it, I got impatient to cut ties with this warped guy. When we opened the door, there was the kitchen, a room about the size of a 4.5 tatami mats, but with flooring. A glass door led to the next room. Ozu entered ahead of me and turned on the kitchen light as if he lived there. He seemed to know the apartment inside and out. When I mentioned this, Ozu nodded. I mean, we're in the same club. Even now, I sometimes come over and let him vent at me. It's a pain, though. Once he starts complaining, he doesn't stop. He said with a totally complacent face, "You're a heinous friend. I prefer tactician." I didn't want to do anything that would land me in prison, so after entering like a gentleman through the door, I stayed where I was. "Come on, this way," Ozu pressed, but I stood my ground. "You go find it. I'm staying put. I at least want to have some manners." "It's a bit late for that. No, there's no point in acting like a gentleman now." We argued a bit, but eventually Ozu gave up and went into the back room on his own. The sounds of him rummaging around in the darkness suddenly turned into the sound of him knocking something over by accident. Ee-hee-hee! His joy grated on my ears as he fooled around. "Come on, Kaori, don't be shy. Leave Jogasaki and let's get out of here." When I saw the woman he eventually carried into the kitchen, I was astounded. "This is Kaori," Ozu introduced her, but dang, I had no idea she'd be this heavy. Dang, what the heck? I mean, Jogasaki, he's good looking, he's active, he's in clubs, he's going to get coffee with Akashi. Why does he need this doll? Surely many people are aware of the heartbreaking object known as a Dutch wife. Even I am. My basic understanding of Dutch wives was that pitiful men, driven by unstoppable urges, purchased one against their better judgment and then sobbed tears of regret, i.e., it was incredibly prejudiced. According to intel Ozu obtained in May, Jogasaki secretly owned one of these Dutch wives. He emphasized that this wasn't just any Dutch wife, but an extremely high-end silicone one that cost tens of thousands of yen. Nowadays, they're called love dolls, he explained. Okay, so Jogasaki was just super horny, like, all the time, so... Yeah, okay. If after being ousted from the club, he had once lorded over and losing his girlfriend at the same time, Jogasaki hit rock bottom of despair and, spurred by loneliness, ended up shelling out for a love doll. There was a logic to it, even if it seemed highly unlikely. But that wasn't the case. Word was he had had her for at least 2 years. During that time, he was also associating with real women, so in a sense, he must be a true love doll fan. It was something I couldn't quite fathom. Yes, it is a little weird. There's meaning in living alongside a doll you care for. Owning a love doll is entirely different from dating a woman, a barbarian like you, who only sees them as tools for sexual gratification, probably can't understand. But what we're dealing with here is a highly evolved form of love. Okay, this was Ozu talking, so I didn't believe it one bit. Ozu's talking like he has one, and he's trying to like make it seem not as strange as it is. I'm just thinking it's kind of like maybe someone's like if somebody has really bad social anxiety or is super awkward, so they get like a stuffed animal to talk to, and then they pretend like the stuffed animal can hear them, and they're like, yeah, this is my best friend. So it's kind of sad and pathetic, but at the same time, I mean, if somebody's having problems, you can kind of see why they do something like that. But that night, when Ozu pulled this doll, Kaori, out of the back room, she was so beautiful and delicate that she didn't seem doll-like at all. Her black hair was smoothed nicely down, and her refined blouse even had a proper collar. Her dreamy eyes were looking my way. "That's the doll?" I blurted in admiration. "Shh, not so loud," Ozu said, laying a finger against his lips. Then, "Right, this is the one. Careful, or you'll fall for her," he quipped with a proud grin. She must have been awfully heavy. Ozu had a tough time setting her on the floor. The scene that played out before my eyes, this weird, oh-so-loathsome yokai crouched next to a pristine beauty lying on the ground, was like an illustration from some tale of the bizarre from the early Showa era. Come on, we gotta carry this to the car, he said, all business despite his nasty appearance. Then he urged me to pick her up. She had an adorable face. Her skin was completely human in hue, and when I gently touched it, there was a springy firmness. She had well-kept hair and was immaculately dressed. She looked like a lady of noble birth, except she didn't move at all. It was as if she had been frozen the instant she cast her eyes into the distance. As I gazed at her, I got turned on. No, I got riled up. I didn't know Jogasaki personally, but though this was a very closed-off kind of love, I was also forced to admit it was indeed evolved. So he's falling in love with the doll. Take Kaori's elegant expression. Oh my goodness. It wasn't the face of someone lost in an immoral lifestyle. Her smooth hair and neat, she's not an immoral lifestyle, she's an inanimate object. Her smooth hair and neat clothes indicated the depth of Jogasaki's love. A barbarian like Ozu, who only saw her as a tool for sexual gratification, probably couldn't understand, but destroying this delicate world Jogasaki and Kaori had built together. Kaori didn't build anything, she's an inanimate object, even on our master's orders, would be unforgivable. The height of inhumane brutishness. Taking Kaori away would be too cruel for words. So he is having some empathy for Jogasaki here. He's thinking, okay, we're taking away something that Jogasaki obviously really, really likes. He's taking really good care of this doll. So despite having diligently walked the fruitless path where not even weeds grow, never defying our master's teachings, I couldn't approve of this heartless endeavor. Oh, master, I am incapable of it. Ozu was about to eagerly touch Kaori's hands, but I grabbed him by the collar. Don't. Why? I won't let you take Kaori, I said. Jogasaki, keep right on walking your path with your head held high. There is no road before you, but there will be one in your wake. I sent him a passionate cheer in my head, and of course Kaori too. So this is goofy and funny, but these people have problems. That night, I dragged Ozu, who protested by shrieking like a little animal, out of there and repaired to Shimogamo Yusu-Iso. My base of operations was a room at Shimogamo Yusu-Iso in Shimogamo Izumikawacho. From what I had heard, it had been standing there since being rebuilt after burning down in the disorder accompanying the last days of the Tokugawa shogunate. If there hadn't been light seeping through the windows, the building would have been taken for abandoned. I thought I must have wandered into the walled city of Kowloon when I first visited the place on the university co-op's introduction. The 3-story wooden structure caused all those who saw it anxiety. It seemed ready to collapse at any moment. Okay, we have read this before. Its dilapidation was practically important cultural property level. Certainly, no one would miss it if it burned down. In fact, there was no doubt in my mind that this would be a load off for its landlady who lived just to the east. It was already the dead of night. Ozu and I climbed the stairs. I lived in 110 on the first floor, but Master Higuchi's room was the far one on the second floor, room 210. Light spilled out from the little window above the door facing the hallway. Apparently, he was waiting for us to return from our successful operation. To be honest, it pained my conscience to betray his expectations and abandon the proxy war. I would have to present him with something I knew he liked. When we opened the door, Master Higuchi and Akashi were seated politely on their knees facing each other. I figured the master was admonishing his disciple, but it turned out that Akashi was the one doing the admonishing. When we entered empty-handed, Akashi looked relieved. Aw, so you gave up on the plan. I silently nodded, and Ozu sulked. Hey there, welcome back, fellows, said Master Higuchi, his butt fidgeting on his ankles. I shoved Ozu aside and explained everything. Master Higuchi nodded casually, took out a cigar, and emitted a huge cloud of smoke. Akashi also puffed on the cigar he had given her. It appeared that while we were gone, The two of them had gotten into some kind of argument, which ended with Akashi unquestionably on top. Well, that's fine for tonight, said our master. When Ozu tried to express his discontent, Master Higuchi snapped at him. Shut up, there's a limit to these things. Dang, it was your idea, dude. Getting my yukata dyed pink was one of the rare, truly regrettable incidents of recent years, but I must say that ripping apart Jogasaki and Kaori, who had a good relationship for years, in such a despicable way, would be entirely too merciless in a retaliation, even if Kaori was a doll. Huh? That's not what you said last time we had this conversation. When Ozu protested, Akashi said, Ozu, please shut up. In any case, continued Master Higuchi, this goes against the rules of the fight Jogasaki and I have been maintaining. Not only that, it also deviates from our greater purpose of attaining the lightness of not having our feet on the ground and coming and going freely between the earth and skies. Oh? Is Jogasaki also a god? I was simply upset about my yukata and let it get my blood up. With that, he expelled a huge cloud of smoke. Will that do? He asked Akashi. I think so, she nodded. Thus the plot to abduct Kaori was aborted. Under everyone else's chilly gazes, Ozu hurriedly gathered his things to leave. I have a club party to go to on the Delta tomorrow. So much to do, he murmured out of spite, huffy as a piping hot fish burger. Sorry, Ozu, I can't make it tomorrow, said Akashi. She was one of the younger members of Ozu's club. Okay, so Akashi is also still on the Evolutions Film Club. How come? I have an essay to prep for. I need to find sources. Which is more important, school or the club? School, definitely. Ozu arrogantly lectured. You should be at the party. No, she replied flatly. Ozu didn't seem to have a comeback. Master Higuchi was smirking. You're an interesting one, he said in praise of Akashi. It was the evening after our aborted attempt at abducting Kaori. Finally, the mugginess of summer had eased and a cool breeze was blowing. As I walked across Sanjo Ohashi, I thought about the various things that had happened in the past 2 years. There were countless, if only I hadn't, moments, but I'm positive that meeting Master Higuchi at the clock tower was the decisive one. If I hadn't met him, who knows, but I'm pretty sure things would have turned out all right. I could have joined the Evolutions Film Club, or if not that, then the Mellow Softball Club. That underground organization, Lucky Cat Chinese Food, was another option. No matter which I had chosen, it's clear that I would have been a more useful, wholesome person than I am now. This is a good lesson. You have all these ideas of, oh, my life would have been better if I did this or that, or if I had this opportunity, or if I had this much money and blah, blah, blah. But you take yourself wherever you go. It's like if you think that moving to a completely different place would solve all of your problems, and your problems do kind of follow you around. And yeah. The street lights sinking into the twilight only spurred those thoughts on. But in any case, I crossed Sanjo Ohashi and entered a retro scrub brush shop on the west side to acquire a Kame Noko Tawashi to present to Master Higuchi. This is just me repeating what he said, but apparently these scrub brushes were first sold by Nishio Shoten 100 years ago. They're usually made with palm or hemp fiber. According to Master Higuchi, in the confusion following the Pacific War, a medical student stole Nishio Shoten's method and began selling Kame Noko Tawashi made from a special type of hemp fiber grown in Taiwan. Because the tips of the tough, unimaginably fine fibers form molecular bonds with the dirt constituents via the van der Waals force, these brushes can remove any crime with a light touch. No muscle necessary, the ultimate kitchen weapon. They remove grime so well, corporations fearful that even their soap sales would be scrubbed away put pressure on the brush's creator, and now they aren't sold very widely. Still, those fishy-sounding Kamenoko tawashi continue to be made in secret. The filthiness of Master Higuchi's room was insufferable, especially the filth of the sink, which was enough to send a young lady of gentle birth into a fainting spell just after one look. When I pointed out that in one corner of the sink a life form hitherto unknown on Earth seemed liable to forge a unique line of evolution, Master Higuchi told me that he needed that luxury scrub brush in order to clean it, and that I should stop at nothing to get one. If I didn't, I would be expelled. By all means, please expel me. The words were in my mouth. I just didn't say them. Thus I found myself at this shop, filled with tons of Kamonoko tawashi, but as I timidly explained the elusive scrub brush I was searching for, a wry smile appeared on the shopkeeper's face. Of course it did. Even I had to laugh. Yeah, we don't carry anything like that, the shopkeeper said. Flaying that wince, I exited into the crowd on Sanjo Dori. We had already failed to abduct Kaori. Maybe it would be better to just expel myself. From there, I wandered toward Kawara Dori. I passed the famous pachinko parlor where long ago the Shinsengumi attacked masterless samurai conspirators. Why the samurai chose to do their conspiring at a pachinko parlor is a mystery that won't be solved so easily. I couldn't go back to Shimogamo Isu like this. Even if I couldn't get my hands on one of those elusive scrub brushes, I had to find something to humor Master Higuchi with. How about a luxury cigar from Cuba? Or maybe I should get some tasty seafood from Nishiki Market. Having fretted and fretted, I walked unsteadily south down Kawara Dori. Night was drawing near, and the atmosphere grew charged with energy despite my lack of excitement, which spurred my irritation. I stopped by the used bookstore Gabi Shobo and thought I would buy a book. When I went inside and started searching the shelves, the owner, with a face reminiscent of simmered octopus, didn't even smile as he said, "We're closing, out, out, out." And he chased me off as if I were a poisonous bug. The fact that even though we know each other to some extent, he wasn't the slightest bit flexible pissed me off. It was very admirable, but it still pissed me off. With nowhere to go, I slipped between buildings and walked to Kiyamachi. Ozu had said he had a club party tonight. He was probably surrounded by cute underclassmen doing just fine. I, however, failed in my quest to find the weird scrub brush born of Master Higuchi's fantasies, had been thrown out of the used bookstore that should have been a place for me to rest, and was walking alone in a bustling crowd. Isn't that just the height of injustice? As I stood sulking on the little bridge over the Takase River, I saw Hanuki's face among the people coming and going in the neighborhood. I hurriedly pretended to be a pedestrian having trouble lighting a cigarette and covering my face. Hanuki was a mystifying dental hygienist who often visited Master Higuchi's place. 8 or 9 times out of 10, if she was on the prowl in the Kiyamachi area, she was after ethyl alcohol. Once I ran into her in town, and just like a weakling, lassoed and dragged over the ground by an outlaw on a horse in a western, I was dragged from Kiyamachi all up and down but the Pontocho district, and the next thing I knew, I was sprawled out alone next to the Ebisu River power plant. It was summer, but not a big deal. But if it had been winter, I'd have frozen to death beneath a row of leafless trees. I had absolutely no intention of being dragged into an endless night and kept in a half-alive state with coffee shochu. I ducked my head and avoided Hanuki's gaze. Though I was relieved when she passed, it wasn't as if I had anywhere to go. Just as I was getting seriously tempted to expel myself, I met an old woman. Okay, so this must be the fortune teller woman. Among the bars and sex shops crouched a dark house. Okay, Let's see. Did we read this already? Yeah, I think we read this already. It's the fortune teller woman. Oh, I'll just read it. Okay, under its eaves, an old woman sat before a wooden table covered with a white cloth, a fortune teller. A sheet of paper hanging from the table was crammed full of kanji whose meanings I couldn't fathom. Something like a little lantern glowed orange, bringing the woman's face into view. There was something strangely intimidating about her. She was a yokai, licking her lips at the souls of the people passing by. Get a single fortune, read and forevermore. The shady old woman will haunt you day and night. Nothing you try to do will go well. The one you're waiting for won't come. Your lost items will never turn up. You'll fail the classes that should have been easy credits. Your graduation thesis will spontaneously combust just before you hand it in. You'll fall into Lake Biwa Canal. You'll be solicited on the street by one of those people on Shijo Dori. I was resolutely imagining all of this terrible luck while staring at her. So eventually she sensed my presence. From the depths of the darkness, she flashed her eyes at me. The unearthly atmosphere she emitted ensnared me. That atmosphere was persuasive. I considered it logically. There was no way someone giving off supernatural vibes this potent for free would tell a fortune that missed the mark. I've been alive in this world for nearly a quarter century, but I can count on my fingers the number of times I listened so humbly to another person's opinion. Maybe that was how I ended up purposely taking this thorny path there was no need to walk down at all. If I had abandoned my own judgment sooner, my life as a college student would have turned out differently. I wouldn't have become the disciple of this weird guy, Master Higuchi. I wouldn't have met Ozu with his labyrinth character, and I probably wouldn't have wasted 2 years either. I would have been blessed with good friends and upperclassmen associates, employing my overflowing talents in full to excel in both the literary and military arts, the result of which would have been a beautiful black-haired maiden at my side, and before me a shining future of pure gold. If things went well, perhaps even that elusive supreme treasure, a rose-colored, meaningful campus life, would have been within my grasp. For a person of my caliber, even a stroke of luck wouldn't be even a little unusual. Right, it's not too late. With all possible haste, seek an objective opinion and escape into one of the other lives you could have. I stepped forward as if drawn by the old woman's otherworldly aura. Well, my boy, what would you like to know? She spoke in a mumble, as if her mouth was full of cotton, which really made me feel like I was speaking with a wise elder. Good question. When I remained lost for words, the old woman smiled. From the look on your face right now, I gather you're terribly irritated, dissatisfied. It seems that you aren't making full use of your talents. Your current environment doesn't appear to be a good fit for you. Yes, that's right. That's exactly it. Let's have a look. The old woman took my hands and pored over them, nodding to herself. You seem to be extremely hardworking and talented. I was already impressed by her keen insights. Just as in the proverb, a clever hawk hides its talons, I had modestly kept my good sense and talents hidden so no one would find them, but I did such a good job that I hadn't been able to locate them myself for the past few years. For her to spot them within 5 minutes of our meeting meant she couldn't be any ordinary fortune teller. It's essential that you do not let this chance pass you by. What I mean is a good opportunity. Do you understand? But chance is rather hard to seize. Sometimes, something that doesn't look like a chance at all is one, while other times, what you were sure was your chance turns out, in retrospect, to not have been it at all. But you must perceive your chance and act on it. It looks like you'll have a long life, so I'm sure you'll be able to seize one at some point. Profound words befitting her otherworldly aura. I can't wait that long. I want to seize my chance now. Could you explain it in a bit more detail? When I pressed her, the old woman's wrinkles warped slightly. I wondered if her right cheek was itchy, but apparently this was a smile. It's difficult to speak in particulars. Even if I tell you now, your fate might change. Okay, so this is all exactly the same too. And she talks about Colossio. So the Colosseum, so he's going to see the Colosseum again. Okay, yeah, when your chance comes, don't miss it, seize it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we've seen this before. Okay. Even if you miss this chance, you needn't worry. You're a fine person, so I'm sure you'll be able to seize one someday. That I know for sure. There's no rush. With that, she ended the reading. Thank you. I bowed my head and paid her fee. When I stood and turned to go, Akashi had appeared at some point and was standing behind me. Playing little lost lamb, are you? She said. Akashi had begun visiting Master Higuchi the previous autumn. After Ozu and myself, she was his third disciple. She was a newer member of the club Ozu was in, basically his right-handed girl. Because of that, their ties were hard to cut, and she ended up a disciple of Master Higuchi. Akashi was a year behind me and belonged to the engineering department. As someone who didn't mince words, she seemed to be given a wide berth by her peers. She had straight black hair cut short, and when something didn't make sense, she would furrow her brow and argue back. Her eyes were rather cold. She wasn't the vulnerable type. Why did she end up getting close to a man like Ozu? Why did she end up visiting Master Higuchi's 4.5-mat tatami room? The summer of her first year, one of the kids in her club asked her like a dope, Akashi, what do you do in your free time on the weekends? Akashi replied without even looking at him, why should I tell you? No one asked Akashi about her weekend plans after that. Okay, so we've read all this before too in the previous part. I heard the story after the fact from Ozu, and it goes without saying that I sent her a passionate mental cheer. Akashi, you keep running right down your own path. So that's the same too. This girl, tough like a medieval European castle town, though she had one weakness. Okay, is it the yep, it's the moth. So this is when she accidentally touches a moth and it's squishy and she gets scared, and the main character thinks she looks cute while she's scared. Okay. Yep, and he's trying to calm her down. Okay, so I think this is new. As we walked, I mentioned that elusive scrub brush, and Akashi made a face. Master Higuchi always makes such a difficult demand, she grumbled. He must be upset about the aborted abduction, I said, but Akashi shook her head. I don't think so. That plan was out of character for him. When I told him that last night, he thought better of it. Huh. You gave up on the plan, right? If you hadn't, I would have had no choice but to despise you from the pit of my stomach. But you cooperated with Ozu and invited Jogasaki out, didn't you? No, I didn't in the end. Master Higuchi called him, she said. Oh? Doing something like that and having dark, nasty feelings is against Master's teachings in the first place. It carries some weight when you say it. She smiled wryly at my comment. Her short, neat black hair swayed pleasantly as she walked. She had the slickest of vibes. The abduction failed. I can't find the scrub brush. Maybe I'll finally be expelled, I said. No, it's too soon to give up. With that, Akashi pulled ahead of me. The grave, confident way she carried herself made me think of Sherlock Holmes, like a client at his office on Baker Street, pressing their palms together in supplication with no other option but to rely on him. I followed her. I've always wondered what exactly happened between Master Higuchi and Jogasaki. She cocked her head as we strolled down an alley that led from Kiyamachi to Kawaramachi. Jogasaki is an upperclassman in your club, right? You don't know anything about it? Not a thing. All I know is that it's called the masochistic proxy war, I said. I suppose whatever happened wasn't something you could forgive and forget. We were chatting like that when she stopped in her tracks. We were in front of Gabi Shobo, where I had gone earlier. The owner wore a cranky frown as he prepared to close up, but when he saw her, he beamed. This old fart with a mug reminiscent of simmered octopus suddenly looked as soft as the old bamboo cutter must have been when he found Princess Kaguya. Akashi had become friends with the owner after working at his stall at the used book fair. and it seemed she made a point of stopping by to chat when she was on Karawamachi Dori. But wow, his melted marshmallow softness was no joke. Compared with his attitude when he threw me out earlier, the difference was night and day. When I looked at the complete works of Akinari Ueda in the window, Akashi was walking to the owner, and the old bamboo cutter nodded as he listened. After a little while, he shook his head apologetically. Then he pointed west of Kawaramachi Dori and told her something. "Here's no good. Let's try somewhere else," Akashi said. The search for the Kamenoko Tawashi changed course for west of Kawaramachi Dori. We crossed Kawaramachi Dori, going west on Takoyakuchi Dori, and entered Shinkyogoku, which was bustling with the evening crowd. Akashi turned into an alley that headed towards Teramachi and strode into a second-hand shop with worn luggage and lamps lined up under its eaves. While I toyed with a tin submarine model in one corner of the shop, she asked for info about the scrub brush and got the name of a gift shop in Nishiki Market. When I obediently followed her, she went into a dimly lit gift shop on the western end of Nishiki Market, and after talking about this and that with the couple who ran it, learned that the owner of a shop on Bukoji Dori might know something. The sun was going down as we crossed Shijo Dori, headed south along Bukoji Temple, and this time turned east. Unlike in the Shijo era, there wasn't as many people on the streets here, and it was quiet. There was a gift shop with its shutter half down. Akashi poked her head inside and called, "Excuse me." She mentioned the gift shop in Nishiki Market, and apparently that worked. I was also invited inside. All sorts of things were crammed together on the dark room's earthen floor. When the owner, thin as a crane, flipped a switch, an orange light came on. "Where did you hear about that?" he asked, as I mentioned Master Higuchi and said I wanted to get hold of the scrub brush if at all possible. The chiseled features of the lean shopkeeper were thrown into even sharper relief by the orange glow, giving him an intimidating air. His aura alone overpowered me into speechlessness, and after a little while he went into the back room and came back momentarily with a Paulonia wood box. I looked inside when he wordlessly removed the lid and saw what at a glance appeared to be a perfectly ordinary Kamenoko Tawashi. "This is it," the shopkeeper said, handing me the box. "How much is it?" I asked, and he took a good look at my face. I suppose I'll take 20,000, he said decisively. No matter how special the palm fibers were, 20,000 yen was exorbitant. If I were going to spend that much on a scrub brush, I'd rather choose glorious expulsion. So 20,000 yen. That's like what? Is that like $200? I don't know. I got through the moment by making the excuse that I didn't have enough on me, and on the way home, I thought I might just let Master Higuchi expel me. "What's your plan? Are you going to buy it?" Akashi asked as we walked down Shijo Dori. "Would you? I don't care what kind of brush it is. 20,000 is insane. That's probably the sort of thing they used at Shimogamu Sario. It's for cleaning at a fine establishment, not a mucky 4.5 mat tatami room sink." "But Master told you to get it, right?" "I'm finally going to be expelled." "Really? I doubt he'd cut you off over a scrub brush," she said. "Nah, he has you now, and Ozu is there. Maybe he's about ready to put something. Oh, maybe he's about ready to push someone like me out to pasture. Please don't lose hope. I'll talk to him." "Thanks." Since becoming a disciple, I navigated many of Master Higuchi's unreasonable demands. When I think back on them now, I wonder why I wasted time on such things. All of his challenges were pointless. There were a lot of universities in Kyoto, so there were a lot of students. Our master declared that as students living in Kyoto, we should contribute to the city. For a while, Ozu and I would sit on a cold stone on the philosopher's path, even in the wind or rain, poring over Kitaro Nishida's An Inquiry into the Good, and debating all sorts of things without even understanding what he meant by perception is a kind of impulsive will and whatnot. We were attempting to be tourism resources for the city. It was the most pointless thing ever. Not only that, but I messed up my stomach. I did my best as long as my mental and physical strength held out, but by chapter 3 of part 1, Will, I had burned out completely. Ozu's face had been focused at first, but immediately went slack, and by the time we read, originally organisms perform various movements to preserve life, Ozu murmured, movements to preserve life, with a lewd grin and got unreasonably excited. Oh, okay, I know what he's thinking. He must have been dazzled by shameless fantasies unleashed by his Y chromosome. As a result of Ozu's being forced to read philosophy texts he didn't understand in a place as quiet as the philosopher's path, his dark urges seemed about as ready to burst as ripe Kyoto grapes, and inquiry into the good transformed into an elaborate collection of dirty jokes. Needless to say, our plan didn't work out. If we had gotten to part 4, religion, everything that would have come out of our mouths would have been so blasphemous that we wouldn't have been able to show our faces in public any longer, that our mental strength, endurance, and intelligence weren't up to the task was fortunate for Kitaro Nishida's reputation as well. Our master was a Ferrari fan, so on the occasion of Ferraris winning the Formula One championship, I ended up having to run diagonally across the Hyaku Maben intersection carrying a huge, probably 2 tatami mats huge, red flag with their rearing horse logo and nearly got hit by a car. I was going to make Ozu do it, but since it was Ozu who had procured the flag somehow, I was at a severe disadvantage. On top of that, Ozu ran away after egging Master Higuchi on. So yeah, I got stuck having to brandish Ferrari's power for all to see. I got cussed out by drivers, and pedestrians glared at me in contempt. It was a tremendously awful experience. Our master desired all sorts of things. He bragged that great men had great big appetites, but it was always Ozu and I who had to do the acquisition. It wasn't only food, cigarettes, and alcohol that we gifted him. My tribute included a coffee grinder, a folding fan, a Carl Weiss spotting scope I'd won in a shopping street raffle, and more. The copy of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea he'd been reading for a year was originally something I had purchased at the Shimogamo Shrine Youth Book Fair. I had set the book carefully aside because I thought chilly autumn evenings should be properly spent staying up late reading a classic adventure novel, but before I knew it, I had given it to Master Higuchi. Mame mochi from Demachi Futaba, fresh cinnamon mochi from Shogoin Yatsuhashi, sea urchin rice cakes, or cookies from Nishimura Aceboro were doable, but when he asked for stuff like a banner from the youth book fair or a Karayon figure, I was pretty stumped. By the time he was asking for a life-sized Kamen Rider V3 figure, a square of fish cake as big as a tatami mat, a seahorse, and a giant squid, I had given up. Where was I supposed to get a giant squid? Once he told us to leave immediately for Nagoya and buy just the miso they put on miso katsu, and Ozu really did go to Nagoya that very day. I've got to give him props for his dedication. Incidentally, I did once go to Nara just to buy deer crackers. When Master Higuchi mentioned that he wanted a seahorse, Ozu got his hands on a big aquarium somehow. As he was filling it with water and adding in gravel and water plants, there was suddenly an ominous whoosh, and all the water flooded out with the force of Niagara Falls. Our master laughed, watching Ozu and I running around the soggy floor, 4.5 mat tatami room in a panic. After a little while, Master Higuchi said, "I suppose the water is leaking downstairs?" "Ah, right. This place is falling apart." Ozu smacked his forehead. "We're going to have trouble if the person downstairs comes up to bitch at us. What'll we do?" "Wait a minute. I live downstairs," I shouted. "Oh, then who cares? Leak away." Ozu didn't bat an eye. The leak from Master Higuchi's apartment had soaked into my room number 110. The water dripped down to make all of my precious documents, both obscene and not, soggy. But that wasn't the only damage I suffered. All my precious data, both obscene and not, was lost from my waterlogged computer, vanished into the electron sea. It goes without saying that this incident hastened the decay of my academic life. After all that, before Master Higuchi even got his seahorse, he started asking for a giant squid. So rather than getting repaired, the aquarium gathered dust in the hallway. To distract the master from his feelings toward marine life, I lent him my copy of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but it had been almost a year and he hadn't returned it. In other words, there wasn't much in this relationship for me. Among our many foolish endeavors was the fierce masochistic proxy war with Jogasaki. Following orders from our master, we did things like rewrite the name plaque outside Jogasaki's place, set a fridge someone was trashing in front of his door, and send him a string of nasty chain letters. Jogasaki retaliated by, for example, gluing Master Higuchi's sandals to the floor, planting a black pepper balloon, and ordering sushi for 20 people in Master Higuchi's name. By the way, when the 20 people's worth of sushi arrived, Master Higuchi accepted it without batting an eye. Then he invited the study abroad kids and us to a sushi party. While I can't fault his ability to roll with the punches, it was Ozu and I who split the bill. After 2 years of training, if you were to ask me if I shed my immaturity to become an upstanding young man, I would only be able to say that unfortunately the outcome was unfortunate. So then why did I spend my days on such futile training? For no other reason than I wanted to see our master smile. When he did these pointless, idiotic tasks, Master Higuchi's whole being rejoiced. When we brought him the sorts of things that would satisfy him, he would smile and praise us, saying, "You're getting the hang of it, huh?" Our master was never servile, only arrogant. Even so, when he smiled, he was as open as a child. This ingenuous art of manipulating Ozu and me with smiles was what Hanuki called Higuchi magic. Yeah, there's something in the main character that's making him want to, like he's going above and beyond for this random guy. And it's like, okay, he's happy. They're going on these wild goose chase fetch quests for him. But it's like, I'm wondering if the main character's self-esteem is so low and he feels so useless that just kind of going on fetch quests for this kind of like bum kind of makes him feel useful somehow, when he could be putting that energy into people and things and his his future career, his university life, that would be more beneficial towards other people and himself. But I guess these fetch quests, it's not like it's, I don't want to say they're not difficult, because he is like wandering around a lot, but it's not like you have to, like, I guess it's less effort than like staying up all night every day for a week to do a really difficult paper or doing a really difficult project. He's just kind of wandering around the city looking for random stuff. So the main character, he needs to kind of do some self-reflection of exactly why he's I don't want to say wasting his time, but he is kind of wasting his time just running around doing these things that have nothing to do with his university life, career, future career, love life, whatever. So he's wasting his time doing all the sorts of stuff. Meanwhile, the things he really wants in life are being ignored. So that's kind of interesting. The day after the search for the Kamenoko Tawashi at 7 a.m., a time Okay. It isn't an exaggeration to say that most college students still consider night. I was awoken by someone banging on my door. When I jumped up to see what the issue was, I found Master Higuchi standing outside, practically ripping his hair out, eyes blazing. What's going on? It's so early, I said, but Master just stood there in the cold hallway without saying a word, clutching something square inside his yukata. Soon huge tears began to fall. His eggplant-esque face crinkled up, his mouth frowned, and he cried, using the back of his hand to wipe his eyes with all his might like a bullied child. Then he told me, "My good man, it's over, it's over." I tensed up instinctively and pressed him. "What's over?" "This." He brought the thing he was carrying so carefully out of his breast pocket. It was Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. "This year-long voyage ended this morning. I was so moved I thought I should tell you, and I needed to return the book too." I felt all the tension go out of my body, but Master Higuchi was so moved as he wiped his eyes that even I, somewhat touched that this epic 20,000 league journey had come to an end. He returned 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to me. "Sorry it took so long, really, but it was a pleasant time, so thank you." Then he said, "I've been reading for a while now on an empty stomach, so I'm hungry." Gosh, he's gonna make him pay. "Want to go get gyudon or something?" Thus we went in the crisp morning air to a beef bowl shop at the Hyakumanben intersection, which I'm sure the main character is paying for. We ate breakfast at the beef bowl shop, and as I was settling the bill, for both of our meals, Master Higuchi had already leisurely strode off from Hyakumanben toward the Kamo River. When I caught up to him, he said, "He's so rude." It's like he makes the main character pay for his food, and then he just wanders off and doesn't wait for him. When I caught up to him, he said, "Nice weather, huh?" He looked up, stroking his unshaven chin. A slightly hazy blue May sky spread out overhead. We had arrived at the Kamo River Delta. Master Higuchi went through the pine grove and down the bank. Once we were out of the trees, the sky opened up, and it felt as if I might be sucked right in. Right in front of us stretched Kamo Ohashi, with cars and people busily coming and going in the bright sunlight. Master Higuchi stood at the point of the delta as if standing at the bow of a ship sailing the sea. Then he lit a cigar. The Kamo River coming from the right and the Takano River coming from the left mingled before us to become one Kamo River that flowed vigorously south. It had been raining for a few days previously, so the river seemed to be running high. The bushy green underbrush along the banks was submerged, so the river was wider than usual. As Master Higuchi smoked his cigar, he said, "I want to go somewhere far away." "That's unlike you." As far as I knew, our master had never left his 4.5 mat tatami room for more than a few hours. I'd been thinking about it for a while, but I made up my mind after reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It seems the day I set out into the world has come. "Do you have money for traveling?" "Nope," he said, smiling as he puffed his cigar. He's going to expect everyone else to pay for his journey and pay for his food and pay for everything. He's so selfish. He makes me a little upset. But it's also funny, too, because it's like, oh, he just kind of floats through life. And I'm sure we've all known someone who has done this. They float through life. They rely on other people's generosity, and they kind of expect it. They just kind of feel like, I'm going to do this thing, and other people are going to foot the bill, and as long as I'm charming and confident about it, I can get whatever I want, and other people will work for me for free, which is apparently happening. I don't know if it's like part of his godlike charm, or he's part of his powers or something. Then he continued as if suddenly remembering something. "Speaking of which, the other day I went to school and saw a guy I used to drink with back in my junior year. I greeted him with a, 'Hey, hello there,' and he looked terribly uncomfortable. He asked me what I was doing, and when I said, 'Retaking German,' he skedaddled." Okay, so how old is this guy? His junior year. If he was in the same year as you, he's probably doing his PhD by now. So I guess running into you would be awkward. What's he got to be embarrassed about? It's not like he's the one doing extra years. I don't get it. That's why you're the master. He put on a smug face. In my first year, Master Higuchi lectured me. My good sir, you must never repeat years, become a gamer, or play mahjong. If you do, you'll be wasting your life as a student. Here I am, following your teachings to the letter, not repeating years, not playing video games or mahjong. So why is my life as a student still going to waste? I considered asking Master Higuchi, but I couldn't make myself bring it up. So the master basically told him, oh yeah, don't play video games. You need the time that you'd be spending video games serving me and getting me things and buying me food and delivering me food and delivering anything I want. We sat on a bench on the bank. It was Sunday morning, so there were people walking and jogging along the river bend. While I was looking for the Kamonoko Tawashi around Sanjo, I consulted a fortune teller. I said out of nowhere. Your life hasn't even started yet and you're already lost, he looked amused. Your college years are still an extension of your esteemed mother's womb. I can't spend the 2 years I have left searching for scrub brushes, fighting the masochistic proxy war, searching for scrub brushes, listening to Ozu's obscene chatter, searching for scrub brushes, and otherwise wasting my life. There's just no way. He's starting to stand up for himself. If you mean the Kamonoko Tawashi, it's okay. No worries. I won't expel you over for that. He consoled me. You'll be fine. Haven't you hung in there for the past 2 years? Why stop at 2 more? You'll do a fine job of wasting the next 3 or 4 years. I guarantee it. This guy is a jerk. I'd rather you didn't, I sighed. If I hadn't met you and Ozu, I would have lived more purposefully. I kind of doubt that, but maybe he'll learn his lesson. I would have applied myself to my studies, dated a black-haired maiden, and relished every moment of my untarnished student life. That's right, I'm sure of it. What's gotten into you? Still half asleep? It hit me now completely. I've wasted my time here. I should have given more thought to my possibilities. I made the wrong choice as a freshman. I need to seize my next chance and escape into a different life. And what chance is that? Apparently it's Colosseo. That's what the fortune teller said. Colosseo? I don't get it either. Master Higuchi looked at me as he scratched his stubbly chin. His sharp eyes suggested nobility. It made a 4.5 mat tatami room in a building on the verge of collapse seem completely unsuitable. All I could think was that he was a young lord from some family with good lineage who suffered a sailing accident in the Seto Inland Sea and was washed up on the remote island that was a messy 4.5 mat tatami room. But there he was, still wearing that worn-out yukata, lingering in that room covered in tatami that looked as if it had been simmered into a soup. You can't use the word possibilities without qualification. What defines us as beings are not our possibilities, but our impossibilities, Master Higuchi said. Could you be a bunny girl? Could you be a pilot? Could you be a carpenter? Could you be a pirate who sails the 7 seas? Could you be a thief of the century going after the pieces in the Louvre's vault? Could you develop a supercomputer? No. Master Higuchi nodded and offered me a cigar, something he didn't usually do. I held it up with gratitude and then had trouble trying to light it. Most of our distress begins when we imagine how different life should have been, and trusting your hopes to something as flimsy as your possibilities is the root of all evil. So I do agree with that, not being like the root of all evil, but I think there's good in thinking about the possibilities because that will help you make decisions in the future. You do have to reflect on your past decisions and reflect on the present. So that's part of the decision making for your future, but you can take it too far and just get stuck in the past and just paralyze yourself. You do have to keep moving forward. You must accept this you of here and now. Yep, that's true. You are incapable of becoming anyone else. There is no way you could live a so-called rose-colored campus life to the fullest. I guarantee it, so best dig in your heels. So the main character either told him about the rose-colored campus life, or this guy's a mind reader because he's a god. I think there's a nicer way that you could have phrased that, I said. Stand tall, follow Ozu's example. That's the one thing I'd rather not do. Oh, don't be like that. Just look at him. Sure, his idiocy knows no bounds, but he's stable. I guess. In the end, a stable idiot will live with more significance than an unstable genius. Well, is that really true, though? Yes. Well, every rule has its exceptions. After that, we smoked our cigars in silence and gazed at the sunlight streaming through the pine needles. Since I could boast that I get an average of 10 hours of sleep per night, wow, that's a lot, I hadn't slept nearly enough. Is that right? Since I could boast that I get an average of 10 hours sleep a night, I hadn't slept nearly enough, so when the sun started to warm up the area, I started to get drowsy. Master Higuchi hadn't slept a wink, so he was looking sleepy too. Two weird fellows hovering between dreams of wakefulness on the Kamo River Delta were probably enough to ruin people's precious weekend morning. Master Higuchi yawned. I yawned. We were both yawning forever. Shall we head back? I asked. I suppose. On our way back to Shimogamo Iso, we took the approach to Shimogamo Shrine. We've got to get you stable, my good sir, he said, as if he were talking to himself. If we don't, how am I supposed to have you take my place? Oh? What place? I asked in surprise. Master Higuchi smiled as he puffed on his cigar. Oh, interesting. So that's not Higuchi's angle. He wants someone to take his place? Then what's he gonna do? Does he die? Or does he go to heaven? Or what's going on? Well, I'm on page 127, so I'm gonna take a break for now. I think I have, so here's part 3 back here. So we still have a ways to go before, yep, and he goes through another situation that starts right from the beginning. So we'll read more later.